Homeless teen pulls Hell's Angels' son from a locked storm drain. 900 bikers change his life. The scream didn't come from a house. It didn't come from a car. It came from the street itself, muffled, frantic, bouncing off the concrete like the city was trying to swallow a kid alive. Noah froze under the overpass, rain hammering the river of runoff that used to be a sidewalk. His shoes were soaked through, his hoodie clung to his ribs, and the wind cut so hard it felt personal. Then it came again. "Help! Please!" Thin and cracking, the kind of voice that doesn't have enough air left to be loud. He followed it into the storm. The road above him was a blur of headlights and spray, tires hissing, wipers fighting. Water poured off the bridge in sheets. Noah kept his head down and moved fast because out here at night you didn't stop unless you wanted trouble. But this wasn't trouble. This was panic. The sound led him to the curb where the storm drain sat, half hidden under a pile of leaves and trash. The grate wasn't just in place, it was chained. A thick chain, bright metal against old concrete, and a padlock that looked brand new. Noah's stomach dropped. He dropped to his knees in the filthy water, fingers numb, and leaned over the grate. "Hey!" he yelled into the gap. "Where are you?" A small face appeared in the darkness below, pale, terrified, eyes wide like marbles. A boy, maybe 8 or 9, hair plastered to his forehead, shaking so hard his teeth clicked. Water churned around him, rising. I can't get out," the boy cried. "It's locked! It's locked!" Noah grabbed the chain and yanked. It didn't budge. The padlock sat there like a dare. Cars rushed past, throwing waves that slapped his back. Noah looked up and down the street. No one was stopping. No one even slowed. The storm was too loud, too mean, and people were too sealed inside their warm metal boxes to notice a kid drowning under their tires. Noah's first thought was stupid and selfish. If I touch this lock, they'll blame me. His second thought was louder. If I don't, he dies. "Hold on," Noah said, trying to keep his voice steady when his heart was sprinting. "Look at me. Don't move around too much. Save your energy, okay?" The boy nodded hard, chin trembling. "It's cold." "I know," Noah said. "I know. Just stay with me." He scanned the gutter for anything that could break a lock. His backpack was basically a trash bag with straps. Inside, a half roll of duct tape, a busted phone that wouldn't hold charge, and a little multi-tool with a knife blade so dull it barely cut bread. He pulled it out anyway and jammed the blade into the padlock's seam. Metal scraped, the blade slipped. Noah cursed and tried again, rain washing his hands slick, blood mixing with dirty water as the edge bit his thumb. The lock didn't care. The water did. It surged, pushed by the storm drains upstream that were choking and spitting it back. Noah watched the line climb up the boy's chest. The kid sucked in a sharp breath and pressed himself against the wall of the tunnel like it might make him smaller. Noah's eyes darted. On the sidewalk, half buried in leaves, was a broken chunk of concrete, maybe from a curb that had cracked in the summer heat. He snatched it up with both hands. It was heavier than it looked. He lifted it and brought it down on the padlock. Clang. Pain shot up his arms, but the sound was beautiful, real, loud, decisive. The boy flinched. "It's okay," Noah shouted. "It's okay, I'm trying." He swung again. Clang. The lock held. He swung again. Clang. Then a tiny crack ran across the lock's body. Noah didn't think. He just kept hitting it like he was trying to break the storm itself. On the 4th strike, the lock split. The shackle popped open. Noah tore the chain loose so fast it sliced his palm. He shoved the grate up, but it was wedged by debris and the weight of the water. He shoved harder, muscles shaking. It lifted an inch, then 2. "Can you stand?" he yelled down. "No," the boy sobbed. My foot's stuck." Of course it was. Of course. Noah lowered himself, grabbed the edge, and forced the grate higher with his shoulder until the gap was wide enough. Cold air blasted up from the tunnel like a breath from a basement. The smell hit him. Mud, sewage, rot. He didn't have time to think about it. Noah slid in. The water swallowed his legs instantly, freezing them numb. The tunnel was tight, slick, and the current tugged at him, trying to drag him deeper. He braced one hand against the wall and reached for the boy. "Don't pull," the kid cried, face twisting. "It hurts." Noah saw it, his sneaker wedged under a bent piece of rebar sticking out of the concrete. The drain wasn't finished right, or it had been broken and patched. Either way, it was a trap. "Okay," Noah said, breath coming fast. "Okay, I'm gonna get your foot free. Listen to me. When I say now, you lift your leg, all right?" The boy nodded, eyes squeezed shut. Noah felt along the rebar. It was rusted, jagged. He shoved his fingers under the boy's shoe, tried to pry it upward. The water hit his waist now. It was rising here too, faster than he wanted to admit. "No, no, no," Noah muttered, and then louder. "Now, lift!" The boy lifted, crying out, and Noah yanked with everything he had. The shoe came free with a sucking pop. The boy lurched forward into Noah's chest. Noah wrapped an arm around him. The kid was light, too light, bones and soaked clothes and shaking. "Got you," Noah said. "I got you." Behind them, the tunnel groaned. The water's sound changed, deeper, angrier. Somewhere upstream, another surge hit, and the current slapped Noah sideways, trying to knock him off his feet. He shoved the boy up toward the opening. "Climb!" he ordered. "Go! Use the wall! Hands on the wall!" The boy scrabbled, slippery fingers finding the edge. Noah pushed from below, boosting him like he weighed nothing. The kid's elbows hooked over the curb and he wriggled out onto the street side, coughing, gulping air like he'd been underwater. Noah followed, arms burning as he hauled himself up. The grate slammed down behind him with a wet metallic thud as the water surged and spit more debris through the opening. They were out. For a second, it was just rain and the two of them sitting in the gutter like castaways. The boy coughed hard and then sobbed, sound breaking in his throat. Noah tried to speak, but his own breath wouldn't settle. His chest felt like it was full of broken glass. A flash of lightning lit the street. In the bright split second, Noah noticed details that hadn't registered. The boy's jacket wasn't a normal kid's jacket. It was a tiny leather vest over a hoodie, soaked black. On the back, half covered in mud, was a patch with wings and a skull. Noah didn't know what it meant. He just knew it didn't belong to some random kid in a storm drain. The boy's eyes found the open chain, the cracked lock pieces, and then Noah's face. You saved me," he whispered, like he couldn't believe it. Noah wiped rain from his eyes with the back of his wrist. "Yeah," he said, "you're okay. You're okay." A horn blared behind them, sharp, angry. Noah turned. A police cruiser slid to a stop in the flooded lane, lights exploding red and blue against the rain. Another cruiser followed, then an ambulance, tires pushing water like a wake. Doors slammed, boots hit pavement. "Hey!" a voice shouted. "Step away from the drain!" Noah stood up instinctively, hands out, palms open. Blood ran from the cut in his hand, mixing with rain. He looked exactly like what he was, a homeless kid, soaked and shaking, standing over a child who'd been trapped underground. He tried to speak first to get ahead of the story. He was locked in. There was a chain. "Get on the ground," the officer barked, already moving fast. "Now!" The boy reached for Noah's sleeve. "No, he helped me. Sir, stay back!" Another officer snapped, and Noah realized with a jolt they weren't talking to him when they said sir. They were talking to the kid, because the boy wasn't looking at the cops like a kid afraid of trouble. He was looking at them like he'd been trained to be careful around men with badges. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you were watching this from. Noah dropped to one knee, trying to show he wasn't a threat. Rain stung his eyes. The first officer grabbed his arm anyway, twisting it behind his back so hard Noah hissed. "Wait, please," Noah said, teeth clenched. "He was drowning. I broke the lock. I pulled him out." A siren wailed closer, drowning out the boy's protests. The officer didn't look at the lock, didn't look at the broken chain. He looked at Noah's torn clothes, his dirty face, the blood, the fact that nobody in this town ever gave a homeless kid the benefit of the doubt. "Yeah?" the officer said, voice flat. "And why were you down there with him?" Noah's mouth opened, and the handcuffs clicked shut. The cuffs were too tight on purpose. Noah felt the metal bite every time the officer yanked his arm forward through the rain. Water ran down his neck, down his back, into the waistband of his jeans, and the cold made everything hurt sharper. His scraped palms, his bruised shoulder from forcing the grate, the place in his ribs where the current had slammed him against the tunnel wall. "Don't move," the officer snapped, like Noah hadn't already learned that the less you existed, the safer you were. The boy, still coughing, still shaking, got wrapped in a foil blanket by a paramedic and guided toward the ambulance. His eyes never left Noah. He tried to step closer, but a second cop blocked him with an arm. "Sir," the cop said again, too careful with his voice like the kid outranked everyone here. "Let the medics do their job." "No," the boy choked out. "You can't take him. He saved me. He pulled me out. He broke the lock." The first officer didn't even look at the broken padlock pieces lying in the gutter. He looked at Noah's ripped hoodie, his dirty hair, his thin frame, and decided the story before anyone spoke. "Yeah," the officer said. "We'll figure it out." Noah tried to turn his head just enough to see the lock again, to point at it, to make them understand. A flashlight beam swept over the scene, catching the chain, the fresh metal, the cracked shackle. One of the paramedics whistled under his breath. "That lock's new," the medic said. "Why the hell was it—" "Not your concern," a cop cut in, sharp enough that the medic's mouth closed immediately. Noah swallowed. That was the moment he understood this wasn't going to be simple. They weren't curious, they weren't relieved. They were annoyed, like Noah had made their night harder by not letting a kid die quietly where nobody had to explain anything. They pushed him into the cruiser. The seat was wet and the plastic partition smelled like old sweat and cheap disinfectant. The sirens didn't wail this time. They didn't need to. The storm covered everything. Through the back window, Noah saw the boy lifted into the ambulance. The kid twisted to look out as the doors closed. His small hand pressed against the glass, and for 1 second, Noah thought he'd scream again, not from the drain, but from being separated from the only person who had been willing to touch the lock. The ambulance pulled away. The cruiser rolled after it. Noah leaned his forehead against the cold window and tried to keep his breathing even. He wasn't praying. He didn't pray anymore. He was doing math, how this would look, how they would write it up, how fast a lie could harden into a fact. A homeless teen, a child, a storm, a cut lock. He'd seen how quickly people decided what they wanted to believe. At the station, they didn't book him like a normal arrest. No fingerprints, no mugshot. Not yet. They put him in a small interview room with a flickering light and left him there long enough for his hands to go numb. When the door finally opened, it was a detective, not a patrol cop. Middle-aged, thick neck, eyes that didn't soften when he looked at Noah. "You got a name?" the detective asked. Noah hesitated. Names were currency. Names got you found. "Noah," he said. "Last name?" Noah stared at the table. The detective exhaled like Noah was being difficult for sport. "Address?" Noah didn't answer. The detective's pen scratched anyway. "So you don't have a last name and you don't have an address. Convenient." Noah's jaw tightened. "I told them. He was locked in. I broke the lock. I pulled him out." "Uh-huh," the detective said, like he'd heard 1,000 versions of that line. He leaned forward. "And why were you near that drain in the first place?" Noah laughed once, dry, humorless. "Because I heard him screaming." "In a storm like that," the detective said. "You expect me to believe you heard him over traffic, wind, rain, sirens?" "I was right there," Noah snapped before he could stop himself. "Under the bridge, that's where I sleep." The detective's eyes flicked up. There it was, the real reason. Noah saw it land behind the detective's eyes like a stamp. Drifter. Liar. Problem. "Where are your parents?" Noah's throat moved. "Not here." "Not here," the detective repeated, writing. "So you're alone, unsupervised, no fixed address, no family, and you want me to believe you just stumbled on a kid in a drain." Noah forced himself to breathe. "Look at the lock." The detective didn't. Instead, he stood and walked to the door. "We're going to do this properly. Until then, keep your story straight." The door clicked shut again. Minutes later, maybe an hour, Noah couldn't tell in that room, another officer came in and jerked Noah up by the arm. "You're going to the hospital," the officer said. Noah's heart kicked. "Is the kid okay?" The officer didn't answer. They drove him there cuffed in the back seat like he might explode. The storm had eased a little, but the roads were still rivers, streetlights reflected in pooled water like broken coins. At the hospital entrance, everything was bright, warm, and loud in a different way. Machines beeping, voices bouncing off tile, wet footprints everywhere. Noah felt like he didn't belong just by breathing the clean air. They walked him past the waiting area. People stared. A woman in a soaked coat covered her child's eyes as Noah passed like he was contagious. A nurse at the desk saw the cuffs and frowned. "He's bleeding." "He's fine," the officer said. The nurse didn't move out of their way. He's bleeding on the floor. Sit him. I'm cleaning that. The officer looked annoyed, but he guided Noah to a chair in the hallway outside an exam room. A security guard drifted closer, hand resting near his belt. Noah kept his eyes down. He'd learned how to survive rooms like this. Shrink, vanish, give them nothing to justify. The nurse crouched and took Noah's hand gently, which almost made him flinch. She wiped mud away, and the cut opened wider, red against pale skin. "How old are you?" she asked quietly. Noah didn't answer. She didn't push. She wrapped the wound, fast and practiced. "You did the right thing," she murmured, so softly the officers couldn't hear. "Whatever they think." Noah swallowed hard. He didn't trust kindness. Kindness had a way of disappearing when paperwork showed up. From behind the closed exam room door, he heard the boy's voice, hoarse, scared, but alive. Noah leaned forward, trying to catch words. "I was yelling," the boy said. "I was yelling and nobody came. Then he came. He broke it. He pulled me out." A woman's sob answered him. "Baby, oh my God." A man's voice joined, controlled but tight. "Tell me exactly what happened." Noah couldn't place it, but something about that man's tone made the hallway feel smaller, like the air got heavier. The detective from the station appeared again, walking fast, coat still damp. He nodded to the officers, then looked at Noah like Noah was an unsolved equation. "You're lucky," the detective said. "Kids talking." Noah's stomach turned. Lucky wasn't the word. "You're still not cleared," the detective added like he'd read Noah's face. "He's a child. Kids get confused." Noah stared at him. He wasn't confused in the drain. The detective's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "We'll see." He knocked once and walked into the exam room without waiting. The door swung open wide enough for Noah to see inside. The boy lay on the bed with warmed blankets, oxygen cannula under his nose, hair still wet. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharp. A woman sat at his side, gripping his hand like she'd never let go again. She looked expensive, even soaked. Jewelry, coat, everything that said her life didn't include storm drains. And standing near the foot of the bed was the man Noah had heard. He was tall, broad, with a shaved head and a jaw that looked carved from stone. His hands were huge, knuckles scarred. The sleeves of his shirt were pushed up, and ink covered his forearms like armor. He didn't move much. He didn't have to. The room moved around him. The detective spoke first, voice suddenly polite. "Sir, we just need—" The man didn't look at the detective. His eyes were fixed on Noah in the hallway, like Noah was the only thing that mattered. Then the man's gaze dropped to the cuffs on Noah's wrists. Something changed in his face, not anger yet, not violence, control. The boy saw Noah and tried to sit up. "That's him," he rasped, pointing. "That's Noah! He saved me!" The woman snapped her head around, eyes wide, confused. Then she saw the cuffs too, and her mouth opened in shock. The man took one step forward. It was only one step, but it landed like a threat. The detective shifted, uncomfortable. "We're still determining—" The man finally spoke. His voice was low, calm, and somehow louder than the storm had been. "Take those off him." The hallway went silent. Even the nurse station seemed to pause. The detective tried to keep his tone neutral. "Sir, we can't just—" The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He lifted his hand and pointed, not at Noah, but at the back of the boy's small leather vest folded over a chair. The patch was visible now, cleaned of mud enough to read. "Hell's Angels." Noah's stomach dropped straight through the floor as the man's eyes locked onto his again, and he said, slower this time, like he was making sure everyone understood exactly who was speaking. "That's my son." For a few seconds, the hallway just held its breath. The detective stood in the exam room doorway like he could block the man with a badge and a clipboard. He couldn't. The boy's father stepped out into the hall, broad shoulders, rain-dark clothes, tattooed forearms, and his eyes went straight to Noah's wrists. "Take those off him," he said. "Sir," the detective answered, suddenly polite, "we're still investigating. We have to follow procedure." "Procedure starts with the lock," the man said. "A new lock, on a city drain, while my kid was inside it." On the bed, the boy pushed himself up, voice hoarse but clear. "Dad, it's him, Noah. He saved me. He broke it and pulled me out." The boy's mother looked at Noah like she couldn't decide if she wanted to cry or apologize. "Thank you," she said, small and shaking. "Thank you for not leaving him." Noah stared at the floor. Gratitude didn't change how the detective's hand hovered near his holster, or how the officer behind Noah kept his stance angled like Noah might bolt. The detective tried to keep control. "We'll need statements. We also need to know why this young man was down there with your son." "Because I heard him," Noah said, voice rough. "He was screaming." The detective's eyes narrowed. "In that storm." "Over traffic." "I was under the overpass," Noah shot back. "That's why." The mother whispered, horrified. "He's homeless." Noah felt the word land like a weight. He felt the hallway's mood tighten, the way people's sympathy can turn into suspicion without warning. Dalton didn't flinch. He didn't look disgusted. He looked angry, but not at Noah. "Take them off," he repeated. The officer behind Noah shifted, looked to the detective, then finally unlocked the cuffs. Blood rushed back into Noah's hands. His wrists were raw, purple lines starting to swell. A nurse immediately stepped in. "Sit," she told Noah, and wrapped fresh gauze around the cut in his palm. "Hold still." Noah sat because his legs were shaking. The nurse worked fast. Her fingers were warm. That alone almost made Noah's throat close up. Dalton's attention turned to Noah. "Tell me about the lock," he said. Noah swallowed. "It wasn't old. It was shiny. The chain, too. Like somebody put it there, recently. And the grate wasn't stuck. It was meant to be shut." The detective cut in quickly. "We recovered the evidence from the scene." Dalton's eyes stayed on him. "Where is it?" "In property," the detective said. "Standard procedure." Dalton nodded once. "Then it doesn't disappear." The detective's face tightened like he'd been accused of something without being named. Dalton went on. "Any cameras on that intersection?" The detective hesitated. "Maybe." Dalton's tone didn't change. "Street cameras, hospital cameras, body cams. Pull them tonight." The detective tried to regain authority. "Sir, I'll request what I can, but we can't just release him. We still have to verify who he is." "No," Dalton said, quiet and absolute. "You verify who locked the drain." A loud voice cut down the hall before the detective could answer. "What's going on?" A sheriff in a wet jacket strode up with 2 deputies. He didn't slow as he approached, like every hallway was his. His eyes swept the scene, then locked on Dalton with instant recognition. "Mr. Dalton," the sheriff said, forcing a smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." Dalton didn't smile back. "Didn't expect my son to be padlocked in a storm drain in your county." The sheriff glanced at the boy, then at Noah, and his face hardened. "We're handling it." The detective leaned toward him, eager. "He was at the scene with the kid. No ID, no address, wouldn't give a last name." Dalton's voice stayed even. "He saved my son." The sheriff's eyes were cold. "And maybe he did. Or maybe he's a story. Either way, I'm not letting an unknown homeless teen walk out of here without answers." The boy tried to sit up again, panic climbing. "He's not bad. He... Dalton lifted a hand toward his son without turning around, a silent signal to breathe. Then he faced the sheriff fully. "You want answers? Start with who put that lock there." The sheriff shrugged. "Could have been vandalism. Could have been kids messing around." The mother stood up so fast her chair scraped. "He called me," she snapped. "He said someone chased him. He hid. He couldn't get out." The sheriff didn't even pretend to care. "We'll take your statement." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "And you'll take his without treating him like a criminal." The sheriff's eyes stayed on Noah, hunting for something he could write down. "You went inside the drain?" he asked. Noah's mouth went dry. "I had to. His foot was stuck." "So you were down there with him," the sheriff said, turning it into a weapon. "I was pulling him out," Noah shot back. "The water was rising. He couldn't move." The sheriff nodded like Noah had just confessed. "Good. We're clear on that." Dalton's voice cut through, controlled. "We're clear he saved him." The mother stepped forward with a blanket from the bed, reaching toward Noah. "He's soaked. Please just—" A deputy blocked her with an arm. "Ma'am, don't approach him." Her face twisted in disbelief. Are you serious? He's a kid." "Then he can dry off at the station," the sheriff said. Dalton took a slow breath, like he was counting to keep himself from doing something stupid. "You're not moving him until my attorney gets here," he said. The sheriff's smile didn't budge. "Call whoever you want. I'm not running my department on your schedule." A hospital administrator appeared at the edge of the group, palms up. Sheriff, please, keep it down. Patience. Then tell your staff to step back, Pruitt said, without taking his eyes off Dalton. The sheriff looked at Noah. You got ID, kid. Noah's throat tightened. He shook his head once. Then you're in protective custody until we sort this out, the sheriff said, like it was generous. That's not protection, Dalton replied. That's a cell. The sheriff stepped closer. This is my county. You don't get to decide how we run it. Dalton didn't move. You don't get to decide who you sacrifice to make your paperwork neat. The sheriff's gaze flicked to Noah's bandaged hand. Or maybe you're protecting someone who's good at breaking locks. Noah's stomach tightened. That was the narrative. Twist the rescue into an admission. Dalton's voice dropped lower. You want to paint him as a threat, you'd better be sure you're not covering for the person who trapped my son. The deputies shifted, hands near their belts. The nurse froze mid-step, eyes wide. The sheriff stared back, unmoved. Deputy, he said without looking away from Dalton, cuff him. The nurse tried to block them. He's injured. He can bleed in custody, the sheriff said. The deputy grabbed Noah's wrists. Noah pulled back on instinct, not to fight, just to keep from being grabbed again. The deputy took it as permission to rough him up. Don't resist, the deputy snapped. I'm not resisting, Noah said, breath quick. The cuffs snapped shut again, tighter than before. On the bed, the boy started screaming, raw, helpless sound, like he was back in the tunnel and the water was climbing. No, Noah, Dad! The mother grabbed her son, crying, trying to calm him. The boy fought her, reaching toward the doorway, eyes wild. Tell them, the boy choked. Tell them about the lock. Tell them he didn't. Dalton finally turned to his son, and Noah saw the strain in his face for the first time. Not fear of cops, fear of losing control while his kid was terrified. It's okay, Dalton said to him, voice steady. I've got you. Then Dalton looked back at the sheriff. You're making a bad decision. The sheriff's smile returned, thin as paper. I'm making a lawful one. Noah was yanked to his feet. The cuffs cut into him with every step. As they pulled him away, Dalton's focus snapped to Noah. Noah, he said, deliberate, did you see anyone near that drain? Noah's mind flashed to the rain and the streetlights, the way a truck had been parked too close to the curb when the ambulance arrived. County logo on the door, idling like it belonged there. There was a truck, Noah said quickly. White, county seal. It was there when I came up. Then it moved. The sheriff's head tilted, sharp interest hiding under annoyance. The detective's eyes flicked away like he'd heard too much. Dalton absorbed it without reaction, but his jaw tightened. At the elevator, the detective leaned in close, voice low and nasty. Next time you want to play hero, don't. Noah didn't answer. He couldn't. The cuffs cut into his skin every time he moved. The elevator doors opened. Noah was pushed inside between two deputies. As the doors began to slide shut, Dalton's voice carried down the hall, quiet, controlled, and aimed straight at the sheriff. Bring him back the way you took him. Then the doors sealed and the hospital disappeared. The station smelled like wet uniforms and old coffee, like nobody ever opened a window even when the building needed air. Noah was led through a side entrance so the lobby cameras wouldn't catch his face too clearly. That was the first thing that made his stomach twist. If this was protective custody, why hide it? They took his shoelaces. They took his hoodie string. They took the little multi-tool he'd used on the lock, even though the blade was so dull it felt like a joke. Then they sat him on a bench under a buzzing fluorescent light and told him to wait. A deputy filled out paperwork like Noah was a piece of damaged property. Age? The deputy asked without looking up. Noah hesitated. The deputy finally looked up, eyes flat. You tell me, or I guess. And if I guess wrong, that's your problem. 17, Noah said. The deputy's pen paused for half a second. Juvenile. The word didn't get spoken, but Noah felt it changed the room. Juvenile meant a different set of rules. Juvenile also meant they could keep him longer for his own good. Full name? The deputy asked. Noah stared at the wall clock. The second hand jumped like it was nervous. Just Noah, he said. The deputy's mouth tightened. We'll call you John Doe Noah then. Noah's throat went dry. Can I talk to someone? A lawyer? The deputy snorted. You got lawyer money? The sheriff Pruitt walked in like he owned the air. His jacket was off now, shirt sleeves rolled up, radio clipped to his belt. He looked less like a man who chased criminals and more like a man who decided who counted as one. "We're going to clear this up quick," Pruitt said, standing in front of Noah like a wall. "You want that?" Noah's pulse thudded behind his eyes. "I want you to check the drain, the lock, the chain." "We did," Pruitt said too fast. "Now we're checking you." Noah swallowed. "The kid told you." "The kid is a kid," Pruitt snapped. "Scared, suggestible, and his father's complicated." Noah flinched at the word. Complicated meant dangerous, but not the way Noah meant it. Pruitt didn't sound scared of Dalton. He sounded irritated that Dalton existed in his county. Pruitt leaned closer. "Here's how this works. You tell my detective exactly why you were at that drain, and we get you out of here. You don't. You sit." "I told you why," Noah said. "I heard him." Pruitt's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe you risked your life for a kid you don't know?" Noah's jaw tightened. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I know what it's like when people hear you and keep walking," Noah thought. He didn't say it. Anything emotional got twisted into manipulation. Pruitt gestured, and the detective from the hospital stepped into the booking area with a folder. He dropped it on the counter like it weighed nothing. "Kid broke a city lock," the detective said. "We can make that criminal mischief, trespass, endangerment. If we feel spicy, we can go bigger." Noah's stomach turned. "Endangerment?" "You entered a confined space during a storm," the detective said, voice smug. "Dragged a child out. Could have drowned him, could have hurt him." "He was drowning anyway," Noah said, heat rising. "He was locked in." Pruitt held up a hand like Noah was a barking dog. "We are not debating your hero story. We are writing what we can prove." Noah's hands clenched on his knees. His wrists still ached where the cuffs had cut him. He forced himself to keep his voice steady. "If you want the truth, get the street cameras." Pruitt's face didn't change. "We'll see what's usable." Noah heard what he didn't say. "We'll see what we allow." They walked him down a hallway and put him in a small room with a metal table bolted to the floor. No window, no clock. The light flickered like it wanted to give up. The detective sat across from him and slid a paper forward. "Statement," the detective said. "Just write what happened." Noah looked at the top line. It already said, "Subject admits entering drain with minor." Noah's throat tightened. "This isn't what happened." "Then correct it," the detective said, shrugging. "But sign it." Noah pushed the paper back. "Not without a lawyer." The detective's eyes hardened. "A lawyer isn't coming for you." Noah didn't answer. The detective leaned forward, voice lowering. "You know what you did tonight? You stepped into something you don't understand. People like that man, Dalton, don't repay favors the way normal people do." Noah stared at him. "He didn't ask me to do anything." "No," the detective said, "but he might think you did. And if you didn't, somebody else did. Either way, you're now a thread tied to a big knot." Noah felt a cold prickling crawl up his spine. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about you being smart," the detective said. "You don't have family. You don't have an address. You don't have anyone to come claim you, which means you don't have protection." Noah's voice came out rough. "Protect me from what?" The detective smiled without warmth. "From the consequences of being noticed." He stood, walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "Write your statement, sign it. Make this easy." Then he left. Noah sat alone with the flickering light and the sound of distant radios. He tried to slow his breathing, tried to keep his thoughts from spiraling into the usual place, where every adult decision became a trap and every option was just a different kind of cage. Time passed in chunks. Someone brought him a paper cup of water. Someone else came and asked his name again like they hoped he'd forget his own answer. Noah didn't touch the statement. At some point, the building changed. Not inside the room, inside the air, like pressure shifting before thunder. A door down the hall opened and closed fast. Boots moved quicker. Voices got tighter. Noah pressed his ear closer to the door. "Front lot," a deputy said. "They're lining up." Pruitt's voice answered, sharp. "How many?" "At least 20, the deputy said. "More coming. I can hear them." Noah's pulse hitched. Hear them. Engines. Then, faint but unmistakable, came the sound. Low, rolling, steady. Not one bike, not two. A group, idling somewhere outside like a warning that didn't need words. Noah's mouth went dry. A few minutes later, the detective returned, and his smugness was gone. He opened the door and said, "Stand up." Noah rose slowly, keeping his hands visible. They walked him down the hallway, not toward booking, but toward a side office with blinds drawn. Inside, a man in a suit stood by the desk with his coat still on, rain beating on his shoulders. Mid-40s, clean haircut, eyes that watched everything at once. He turned when Noah entered. "Noah?" Noah stopped. "Who are you?" The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "Eddie Klein, attorney." Noah blinked once. "For who?" Klein didn't smile. "For the family of the minor you rescued." Pruitt stood behind Noah in the doorway like he wanted to physically block the words. "He's not your client," Pruitt said. "He requested counsel," Klein replied, "and I'm here." Pruitt's jaw worked. "He doesn't have the means to retain you." Klein's gaze stayed steady. "Then call it pro bono, call it charity, call it whatever makes you sleep. But if you keep questioning him without counsel after he asked, you're handing me a lawsuit wrapped in a bow." Noah's chest tightened. He didn't trust lawyers either, but he trusted being alone with cops less. Klein looked at Noah, softer now. "Did you sign anything?" Noah shook his head. "Good," Klein said. "Don't." Pruitt's voice snapped. "We're holding him in protective custody. He has no guardian, no ID. He's a minor." Klein nodded once. "Then you notify juvenile services. You don't interrogate him like an adult and try to jam a confession into his hands." "We aren't interrogating," the detective said, stepping in. "We're documenting." Klein turned his eyes on him. "Your documentation already described him as a suspect at the hospital." "I've seen your officer's notes." The detective's face flickered, surprise, then anger. Noah realized Klein had moved fast. Somebody had moved fast. Pruitt leaned against the doorframe like he'd rather chew glass than give ground. "This kid broke a lock on city property." "He broke a lock that trapped a child in rising water," Klein said, "which is going to read beautifully to a jury." Pruitt's eyes narrowed. "If it ever gets that far." Klein held his stare. "Let's test that." He reached into his coat, pulled out his phone, and put it on speaker. "Judge Herrera?" A woman's voice answered, tired and unimpressed. "It's past midnight, Mr. Klein." "Yes, Your Honor," Klein said. "Apologies. I have a 17-year-old in custody who performed a rescue. The sheriff is attempting to hold him without charges under protective custody while questioning him without counsel." Silence, then a sharp inhale. "Sheriff Pruitt on the line?" Pruitt's face tightened. He stepped forward. "Judge, we're handling a delicate situation." "Delicate is not a legal status," the judge said. "Is the minor charged?" Pruitt hesitated. That hesitation was loud. "Answer," the judge said. Pruitt's voice went stiff. "Not yet." "Then release him to juvenile services or to a verified temporary guardian," the judge replied. "And stop questioning him." Pruitt's eyes flicked to Noah like he wanted to carve the problem out of the room. "He has no guardian," Klein spoke smoothly. "The minor he saved is currently under his parents' care at the hospital. Those parents are willing to temporarily sponsor his release tonight to prevent him from being placed in detention." Noah's heart slammed. Sponsor. Temporary. The word sounded unreal. The judge's voice sharpened. "Sheriff?" Pruitt's jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped. "That family is associated with—" "I don't care who they associate with," the judge cut in. "I care that you are holding a minor without charges and ignoring his request for counsel. Handle it correctly." The line clicked off. For a second, nobody moved. Then Pruitt exhaled, slow and dangerous. "Fine," he said. "Temporary release, under conditions." Klein's eyes didn't blink. "Name them." "No leaving town," Pruitt said. "And he returns tomorrow with identification information, birth certificate, social security, something." Noah almost laughed, like he kept those in his pocket. Klein nodded anyway. "We'll address it." Pruitt turned and left the office without looking at Noah again. Klein waited until the door shut, then leaned closer to Noah and lowered his voice. "Listen to me. Outside this building are men who came because they heard what you did. They're not here to start a war. They're here so nobody can pretend you disappeared." Noah's throat tightened. "I didn't ask for that." "I know," Klein said, But you need to understand something. The sheriff wanted you alone. Alone means easy. Now you're not. They walked Noah through the side corridor toward the rear exit. 2 deputies trailed them, annoyed and silent. Noah's hands shook, partly from cold, partly from the sudden whiplash of almost being swallowed by the system, and then not. At the door, Klein paused. "One more thing," he said quietly. "Whatever you saw tonight, any truck, any person, any detail, you tell me first. Not them." Noah's mind flashed to that white truck, the county seal, the way it had been too close to the drain. "There was a county truck," Noah whispered. "White. It was there at the drain." Klein's eyes sharpened. "Did you see a plate?" "No," Noah admitted, "just the seal, and it moved the second the lights came." Klein nodded once, like that confirmed a suspicion he didn't want to say out loud. "Okay." He opened the door. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain-soaked asphalt and exhaust. And then Noah heard it, dozens of engines idling in the dark, deep and steady, like a giant animal breathing. Noah stepped out and froze. Bikes lined the lot in a wide arc, headlights off, riders sitting still in the rain like statues, not yelling, not revving, just there, watching. And across the street, half hidden behind a city utility van, a white county truck idled with its lights off, pointed straight at the exit. Daylight made everything look worse. In the dark, the lot outside the station had felt unreal. Engines breathing, rain falling, riders sitting still like they'd been carved there. In the morning, it was just wet asphalt, coffee cups crushed near the curb, and a line of bikes parked with military neatness as if the storm had never happened. Noah hadn't slept. Not really. They'd put him in a cheap roadside motel under a name he wasn't allowed to hear, with 2 riders posted outside the door like they were guarding a witness, not a kid. He'd laid on the bed fully dressed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, listening to passing trucks and waiting for the knock that meant the sheriff had found a new angle. The knock that came just after sunrise wasn't the sheriff. It was Eddie Klein. Klein stood in the doorway with 2 paper cups of coffee and a look that said he'd already fought 3 battles before breakfast. "You good to walk?" he asked. Noah's throat was sand. "Where are we going?" "To the place where this started," Klein said. "You're going to point. You're going to tell us what you saw, and you're not going to wander off alone. Understand?" Noah nodded once. In the parking lot, a black pickup idled. A man leaned against it with his arms crossed. Daylight didn't soften him. It sharpened him. Ray Dalton. He wasn't wearing colors now. Just a plain dark shirt and jeans. Same carved jaw, same scarred knuckles. His eyes flicked over Noah. Bandaged hand, bruised wrists, the fact that his shoes were still soaked, and something cold passed behind them. "You eaten?" Dalton asked. Noah shook his head. Dalton opened the passenger door of the pickup and tossed a paper bag onto the seat. "Then you will." Noah hesitated like the bag was a trick. Dalton's voice stayed calm. "It's breakfast, not a bribe." Noah slid in and kept the bag in his lap. Inside was a breakfast burrito wrapped in foil and a bruised apple. It was more than he'd eaten in a day, and that made his chest hurt in a stupid way. Klein climbed into the back with a tablet and a folder. 2 bikes rolled out first. 2 more fell in behind them, not loud, not showing off, just there, like a moving fence. As they drove, Noah watched cars pass and tried to make his brain accept what was happening. He'd gone from being nobody under a bridge to being escorted by men everyone in this town feared. And he still didn't know why the drain had been locked. Dalton's hands were steady on the wheel. "My son's name is Cody," he said without looking over. "He's stubborn, thinks he's invincible. That's on me." Noah didn't know what to say, so he said the truth. "He would have died." Dalton's jaw flexed once. "I know." They turned off the main road and headed back toward the overpass. The storm had washed the streets clean in places and filled others with brown water that sat in potholes like old wounds. The sky was bright but low, as if it still didn't trust itself. When they reached the intersection, Noah's stomach tightened. In daylight, the storm drain looked small, ordinary. Something you'd step over without thinking. The curb was still smeared with mud where Noah had knelt. The grate was back in place, but the chain and lock were gone. Of course they were. A city maintenance truck was parked 2 blocks down. Not the county truck, Noah remembered. This one had orange cones and a worker in a neon vest staring at them like he'd just realized he'd been assigned to the wrong job. Two bikes pulled up and stopped at the corner, riders dismounting and standing quietly. They didn't crowd anybody. They didn't touch anything. Just watched. Klein got out first, tablet in hand. Dalton stepped out next, and the air changed. Even in daylight, even with cars passing, people felt him. Heads turned. A woman walking her dog crossed the street without meaning to. Noah climbed out last, the breakfast bag still folded under his arm. "Show me," Dalton said. Noah walked to the curb, heart beating harder than it should have. "Right here," he said, pointing down. The chain was looped through the grate bars, lock on this side, not under it, like someone wanted it visible, like they wanted nobody to touch it. Klein crouched and examined the metal. "Scrape marks," he murmured, "fresh." Dalton scanned the area. "Any cameras?" Noah looked up. Across the street, above a closed pawn shop, a security camera sat under an awning. It looked cheap, but it existed. "That one," Noah said, "and there was a light pole camera up there." He pointed. "I saw it when the lightning hit." Klein followed his finger, eyes narrowing. "City traffic cam." Dalton stepped toward the curb, studying the grate. "You said his foot got stuck." Noah's throat tightened. There was rebar, bent up like a hook. Dalton's face didn't change, but his voice went colder. "Rebar doesn't bend itself into a hook." The worker in the neon vest finally approached, stopping just outside arm's reach like he wasn't sure which side of the situation he belonged on. Can I help you?" he asked, voice shaky. Klein stood. "Name?" The worker blinked. "What?" "Your name," Klein repeated, polite but sharp. "Tom," the worker said. "Tom Haskins. I'm with city maintenance." Klein held up his phone and recorded. "Tom, did your crew install a chain and padlock on this drain?" Tom's mouth opened, then closed. "No." Dalton's eyes stayed on Tom. "Did the county?" Tom swallowed. We don't lock drains. That's not a thing." Klein nodded. "Do you have any work orders for this location in the last 30 days? Tom hesitated. There's a project down the road. New development." "They've been cutting corners, but who's they?" Klein asked. Tom's eyes flicked toward Dalton's bikes and then back to Klein. "Contractors, Harridan Civil. They got the bid." Dalton repeated the name like he was filing it. "Harridan." Tom nodded fast. "They've been messing with runoff and grading. The storm last night. Everything backed up." Noah felt a hot pulse of anger. "So the drain was choking because of their work." Tom lifted both hands. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying water was moving weird." Dalton stepped closer to the grate, crouched, and dragged his fingers along the edge. He held them up. Rust, mud, and something else. Gray dust like fresh concrete. "They poured here," Dalton said. Tom's eyes widened. "No, we didn't." "Not you," Dalton cut in. "Somebody." Klein pointed his camera down at the curb. "This edge is chipped," he said, like something heavy was dropped repeatedly. Noah's palm tingled, remembering the concrete chunk and the sound of the lock cracking. "That was me," he admitted. "I hit the lock." "No," Dalton said, still looking at the curb. "Not that. This is older. Multiple impacts, like someone tested it, like someone tried to make sure it would hold." Noah stared at the grate and suddenly pictured it. Somebody installing the chain, tugging it, striking the metal to see if it would stay shut. Cody's voice echoed in his head. "I was yelling and nobody came." A car slowed as it passed. The driver stared, then sped up. Klein stood, face tight. "Tom, who supervises Harridan's work?" Tom looked down at his boots. "County inspector's been signing off. Name's Marsh. Deputy Inspector Marsh." Dalton went still. "County." Noah's stomach twisted. The white truck, the seal. Klein's voice stayed even. "Do you know which vehicle Marsh drives?" Tom hesitated, then nodded like he hated himself for answering. "White county truck, utility bed, seal on the door." Noah's skin prickled. "That's the one I saw." Dalton's eyes cut to him. "You're sure?" Noah nodded hard. "It was there when I pulled Cody out. Lights off, idling. It moved when the sirens came." Klein's hand tightened around his phone. "That's not a coincidence." Dalton looked down the road, jaw set. "Where's Harridan's site?" Tom pointed. 2 streets over, behind the grocery store. They've got trenches open. Dalton straightened. We're not going there, he said, not as a suggestion, as a decision. Not yet. One of the riders near the corner shifted his stance and tapped his helmet lightly. Signal. Dalton turned his head just enough to see. A white truck had turned onto the far end of the street. Utility bed. County seal on the door. No lights, moving slow. Noah's throat went tight. That's it, he whispered. Klein lifted his phone and zoomed in. The truck rolled closer, not fast, like it had every right to be there, like it was just a county vehicle doing county business. The driver's window was up. The windshield reflected the sky, hiding the face inside. Dalton didn't move. He didn't wave it down. He just watched. The truck slowed to a crawl as it approached the storm drain. It passed the curb. It kept going. Then, 20 feet past them, it stopped. Reverse lights blinked on. Klein's voice dropped. What's he doing? The truck backed up, straight and deliberate, until it was lined up with the curb again, like the driver wanted the best view, like the driver wanted Noah to see him watching. Noah's pulse hammered. The bikes at the corner didn't rev. They didn't surge. They held position, calm as stone. Dalton's voice stayed low. Noah, step back. Noah did, instinctively moving behind Dalton without meaning to. The truck's engine tone changed, higher, a quick aggressive rise like a throat clearing before a shout. Then the truck lunged, not down the lane, toward the curb, toward the drain, toward Noah's side of the sidewalk. Time snapped into slow pieces. Noah saw the front tire jump the curb, saw water spray off the gutter. Saw the county seal blur closer and closer, like it was coming straight for him. Dalton moved first, fast, controlled, grabbing Noah's hoodie and yanking him backward so hard Noah stumbled. At the same time, one of the riders sprinted from the corner and shoved a cone into the truck's path like that would stop 2 tons of metal. Another rider stepped out, palms up, trying to force the driver to think twice. The driver didn't think twice. The truck clipped the cone, smashed it flat, and jerked sideways at the last second, close enough that the side mirror exploded against the grate's edge with a crack like a gunshot. Glass sprayed. Noah flinched and felt something slice his cheek. The truck fishtailed back into the street and roared forward, tires screaming on wet pavement. It shot past them, the utility bed rattling, and tore through the intersection like it had just tried to kill someone and didn't care who noticed. "Plate!" Klein shouted, running to the curb with his phone raised. Noah's busted phone was useless. His eyes were the only camera he had. He squinted through the spray and caught it, letters and numbers half hidden by mud on the bumper. But there. 73J, Noah gasped. 73J? The truck vanished around the corner before he could finish. Dalton's grip tightened on Noah's shoulder. "Say it again," he ordered. Noah's heart hammered. His cheek burned where the glass had cut him. He forced the plate back into his mind, piece by piece, like he was carving it into stone. 73J, 942, he said, voice shaking. "I think. 73J, 942. Klein repeated it instantly into his phone, recording. County truck attempted vehicular assault at the storm drain site. Plate, 73J, 942. Witness, Noah. Dalton stared down the road where the truck had disappeared, face unreadable. Then he looked at the storm drain again, at the grate, at the curb, at the place a kid had been padlocked into rising water. And he said, quiet enough that only Noah and Klein heard it, "That wasn't intimidation." Noah swallowed. What was it? Dalton's eyes didn't leave the drain. That was cleanup. Noah didn't stop shaking until they were miles away from the drain. The cut on his cheek kept stinging every time he blinked, like the glass had left a reminder that last night wasn't over just because the sun was up. Klein dabbed at it with a napkin in the truck, then pressed a clean gauze pad into Noah's hand. "Hold that," Klein said. "Don't rub. Just hold." Dalton drove without music. The bike stayed back on the road, spaced out, quiet. Nothing about it looked like a parade. It looked like a plan. "Cleanup," Noah repeated, still hearing Dalton's word. "You think they were trying to, erase the drain?" Dalton kept his eyes forward. "They were checking what you know, and they wanted you scared enough to shut up." "I didn't even talk," Noah said. Klein's voice came from the back seat, clipped. "You existed. That's enough." They didn't go back to the motel. Klein made one call, and the convoy changed direction, taking side streets, then a frontage road, then a stretch of industrial blocks where every building looked the same, and every camera was either fake or pointed the wrong way on purpose. A warehouse sat behind a chain-link fence. The sign on the fence was a faded warning about trespassing and a smaller sign about towing. Dalton hit a keypad at the gate without getting out, and the gate rolled open. Noah stared. "Where are we?" "Somewhere the sheriff doesn't own," Dalton said. Inside the fence was a plain office trailer with light in the windows. A couple bikes were already parked there. A man in a dark rain jacket stood under the awning, arms folded, watching them arrive. He looked at Dalton first, then at Noah. "Kid's all right?" the man asked. Dalton nodded once. "He's breathing." The man's gaze softened by a fraction. "Good." Noah stepped out and immediately felt every eye on him. Not hungry eyes, measuring eyes, curious, protective. The kind of attention he'd never gotten without it turning ugly later. Klein walked Noah into the office trailer. The inside smelled like old coffee and printer paper. A map was pinned to one wall with colored markers stabbed into it like someone played a game here that wasn't a game. Klein put his tablet on the desk. "We need your full account," he said. "Again, exactly. Timing, angles, what you saw, where you stood, the truck, everything." Noah sat because his legs felt weak. He talked through it, the words coming out faster the longer he went. Under the overpass, the scream, the chain, the lock cracking, the rebar, the current, the county truck idling with the lights off, backing up like a camera. Klein recorded the whole thing. Dalton listened without interrupting, but Noah felt his attention tighten when the plate number came up again. "Say it one more time," Dalton said. Noah swallowed. 73 J 942. Dalton repeated it, slow, like he was memorizing a name. Then he turned to the man in the rain jacket outside the trailer. "Gus," Dalton called, "run that plate, quiet." Gus nodded once and stepped away without a word. Noah rubbed his wrist where the cuffs had been. "What happens now?" Klein's expression didn't soften. "Now we make sure you're not alone when the county decides you're inconvenient." Noah looked down. "They can still pick me up, can't they? I don't have papers." "That's their favorite lever," Klein said. "Juvenile services, protective custody, runaway. They'll dress it up." Dalton's voice was low. "They'll try it." Noah felt his throat tighten. The system didn't need to prove you were guilty to swallow you. It just needed you to be unclaimed. Klein slid a spare phone across the desk, an older model but charged and working. "This is yours for now," he said. "Number is new. Don't give it to anyone except me." Noah stared at it like it might explode. "Why are you doing this?" Klein didn't answer right away. Then, "Because you saved a child, and because someone tried to hit you with a county truck 10 minutes after we started asking questions. Those two facts together are not an accident." Dalton stood and walked out, taking a call that made his shoulders tense. Noah watched him through the window. He didn't look like a proud father right then. He looked like a man who'd discovered a problem big enough to threaten his kid and couldn't decide yet how many rules he was willing to break to fix it. A different man appeared in the doorway, older, gray beard, eyes tired. He carried a small first aid kit. "Sit still," he said to Noah, not unkindly. Noah tensed. "I'm not a doctor," the man added, "but I've stitched worse than that." He nodded at Noah's cheek. Noah let him clean the cut. The sting was sharp. Noah didn't flinch, mostly because he'd learned pain was safer than fear. The man taped a clean strip over it. "Name's Hank," he said. "You hungry?" Noah hesitated. "I ate." Hank grunted like that wasn't an answer. He grabbed a granola bar from a drawer and put it on the desk anyway. "Then eat again." Noah picked it up slowly, fingers stiff. No one mocked him. No one made a joke about how fast he ate. That made him feel weird in a way he couldn't explain. Klein came back in with his phone in hand. "I just spoke to the city about the traffic camera," he said. "They claim it was down during the storm." Noah's eyes narrowed. "That's a lie." "I agree," Klein said. "I requested the pawn shop footage too. Owner says his recorder fried." Dalton came back inside and the air changed again. "They're scrubbing," he said. Klein nodded. "Fast." Noah's stomach rolled. "So, they can just delete it." They can try, Klein said, but they can't delete witnesses. Dalton looked at Noah. That's why you don't go back under that bridge alone. Noah's mouth went dry. I have to. My stuff. You have nothing worth dying for, Dalton said, voice flat. Noah flinched anyway because it was true. His stuff was a blanket that smelled like rain and an old backpack with duct tape holding it together. It was the only proof he existed, and the idea of losing it made his chest tight. Dalton watched him. We'll get it. Noah shook his head. I don't want you. You don't get to want, Dalton said, and then his tone shifted just slightly. Less command, more reality. Not right now. Klein leaned in, keeping it practical. Sheriff Pruitt can make calls, shelters, kitchens, outreach vans. He can tell them you're a problem. He can tell them you're dangerous. He can tell them they'll lose funding if they help you. Noah's stomach sank because he'd seen it happen to other kids, not loudly, quietly. Doors that used to open suddenly didn't. Dalton's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen, then at Klein. He's already doing it. How do you know? Noah asked. Dalton didn't answer him. He answered Klein. My guy just heard radio chatter. Juvenile pickup request. Description matches. They're calling him a runaway. Noah's heart kicked. I'm not running. That's the point, Klein said. They don't need it to be true. They need it to be on paper. Noah stood up. So what? I'm just stuck here? Temporary, Klein said. Noah laughed once, bitter. Everything is temporary when you're me. Dalton's eyes stayed on him. Not this. Noah didn't know what to do with that, so he did what he always did. He went quiet. An hour later, 2 bikes took Noah and Hank in a different car, an old sedan that didn't stand out. Dalton stayed behind with Klein. Noah didn't like being separated, but he didn't like needing anybody even more. They drove toward the shelter Noah sometimes used when beds weren't full. Hank sat in the passenger seat, calm and steady, while Noah stared out the window trying to spot the White County truck on every corner. As they got closer to downtown, Noah's phone buzzed with a message from Klein. Don't speak to anyone without me. The shelter sat behind a thrift store, brick building with a metal door and a keypad that always seemed half broken. Usually there'd be a line out front this time of day. Today the sidewalk was empty. Noah's throat tightened. That's not normal. Hank's hands tightened on his knees. No, he agreed. They parked across the street. Noah saw 2 patrol cars down the block, idling. Not lights on, just there, like they were waiting for someone to exist in the wrong place. Noah's skin prickled. They're here for me. Maybe, Hank said. Maybe they're here to remind you they can be. Noah started to open the car door. Hank caught his arm. We don't walk into a net. Noah jerked his arm back, anger flaring. My bag is in there. Hank didn't argue. He just pointed. A county truck rolled slowly past the shelter. White, utility bed, seal on the door. Noah's mouth went dry. The truck didn't stop. It didn't need to. It passed like a message delivered at walking speed. Noah sank back into the seat, breathing hard. That's him. Hank watched the truck disappear. Then your bag isn't the target, he said. You are. Noah forced himself to look at the shelter door again. A woman he recognized, one of the staff, stepped out, glanced up and down the street, and then spotted Noah's car. Her face changed immediately, not relief, fear. She walked quickly toward them, stopping at the curb like she didn't want to be seen too close. Noah, she hissed through the cracked window. You can't be here. Noah's stomach dropped. What? Why? Her eyes flicked to Hank, then to the bikes parked farther back, then to the patrol cars down the block. They came this morning, she said. Sheriff's people. They asked about you. They said you're a runaway and you're dangerous. Noah stared at her. Dangerous? I saved a kid. She swallowed hard. I know. I know what the news is saying too, but her voice broke. They threatened us, Noah. They said they'll shut us down. They said they'll pull our permits. Noah felt a hollow pressure in his chest like something had been scooped out. So I can't even come inside. Her eyes filled. I'm sorry. Noah's voice came out flat. My bag. She flinched. It's not here anymore. Noah blinked once. What do you mean? We cleaned the room, she whispered. We had to. They were asking to search. I didn't let them. I moved your things to the donation closet in the back. Then it was gone after lunch. Noah stared at her, cold flooding his limbs. Someone stole it. Her eyes darted away. Someone with a badge, she said, barely audible. Noah's hands curled into fists. They took my stuff to force me out. To make you come back, Hank corrected quietly. The staff woman leaned closer. Please, she begged, don't make a scene. Just go. Noah wanted to scream. He wanted to run back to the drain and rip the grate up with his bare hands and show the whole town the rusted hook and the fresh scrape marks and the place a kid had almost died. Instead, he nodded once because that was the only way he knew how to survive. They drove off. The patrol cars stayed where they were. The county truck was nowhere in sight, which somehow felt worse. Back at the warehouse, Dalton met them outside, eyes scanning Noah's face before Noah even spoke. They're squeezing you, Dalton said. Noah's voice shook. They stole my bag. Dalton's jaw tightened. They want you floating, unanchored, easier to move. Klein stepped out from the trailer, phone still in his hand. Juvenile Services has a pickup order pending, he said. Not a warrant, but they'll act like it is. They're looking for you. Noah's stomach turned. So I'm hunted. Klein didn't deny it. For now. Dalton stepped closer, lowering his voice so it felt like a private line in a loud room. You don't leave this fence unless I say, he said. Noah bristled. I'm not your prisoner. Dalton's eyes didn't change. You're not, but you're also not a ghost anymore. Noah swallowed, anger and fear tangling. I didn't ask to be seen. Dalton's voice was quiet. My son is alive because you were seen. A door opened behind them. Cody stepped out, wrapped in a hoodie too big for him, face still pale. He moved carefully, like his body remembered the water. His mother hovered behind him, tense. Cody spotted Noah and froze. Then he walked faster, ignoring his mother's hand on his shoulder. Noah, he said, voice still rough, they said you were in trouble. Noah didn't know what to do with a kid looking at him like that, like Noah mattered. I'm fine, he lied automatically. Cody shook his head hard. You're not fine. They hurt you. His eyes snapped to Noah's bruised wrists. They did that. Noah's throat tightened. It's nothing. Cody stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. I heard Dad talking. He said someone wanted me stuck. On purpose. Noah's stomach clenched. Who? Cody looked up at his father, then back at Noah. He didn't say, but he said you're the only one who saw the truck. Noah's mouth went dry. I did. Cody's eyes were wide and dead serious. Then they'll come again. Before Noah could answer, a rider jogged in from the gate, helmet still on, voice sharp. Dalton, he said, we got movement. 2 unmarked units just turned onto the service road, and juvenile van is with them. Dalton didn't move at first. He just stared past Noah toward the fence like he could see through metal. Klein's voice went tight. They're coming here. Dalton's eyes finally met Noah's again. Inside, he said. Noah took 1 step backward, and the power in the warehouse lot snapped off, plunging the whole fenced yard into sudden daylight. Silence, like someone had cut the throat of every humming line at once. When the power snapped off, the yard went unnaturally quiet. No hum from the trailer, no buzz from the floodlights, just rain ticking off metal and the distant hiss of traffic. The sudden silence felt like a signal, like someone had pulled a plug on purpose. A rider at the gate whistled. 2 unmarked, juvenile van, they're stopping. Dalton lifted 1 hand, palm down. The bikes and bodies in the yard didn't surge forward. They simply shifted into place like a fence that could breathe. 1 rider drifted toward the trailer. Another moved to the corner of the warehouse where the cameras sat dead on their mounts. Hank disappeared behind stacked pallets, and a minute later an old generator coughed, sputtered, then caught. Lights flickered in the trailer window. A small gate camera whirred back to life, panning like it had just woken up angry. Klein grabbed Noah's elbow. Don't go inside, he said low. Stay visible. They want you missing so they can write fled. Stand right here where every lens can see you. He raised his phone and hit record. Beyond the chain link, a gray county van rolled up with Juvenile Services painted on the side in friendly lettering that didn't match the men riding inside it. 2 dark SUVs slid in behind, windows black, engines still running. A woman in a blazer stepped out with a clipboard. Next to her, a man in a windbreaker wore a county badge clipped to his belt. Two deputies followed. One was the detective from last night, the other taller and broader, face blank like he'd been hired to not feel. Noah's mouth went dry. The county badgeman's eyes landed on him immediately, then flicked over the bikes, the fence, the trailer. He looked like he already knew the layout. The blazer woman marched straight to the gate and rapped her knuckles on it like it was her front door. "Open up! Emergency pickup order! Minor runaway! We're taking him to intake!" Noah felt the word runaway shove him backward inside his own skull. Runaway from what? Rain? Hunger? A bridge? He forced himself not to step back. Klein had said visible. Visible meant alive. Klein didn't touch the gate. Warrant? "It's signed," she snapped, lifting a page. "Hold it to the camera," Klein said. Annoyed, she pressed the paper to the chain link. Klein zoomed in. Dalton leaned slightly, eyes narrowing. No seal, no stamp. A scrawl that could have been a judge's name or someone practicing one. Klein spoke calmly, loud enough for the gate camera and the reporter's future mic. "This isn't a court order. It's missing the juvenile court seal and case number." "It's emergency," she said, voice tightening. "The seal will be present when it's valid," Klein cut in. "Until then, you don't take him." The county badgeman smiled thinly, like this was cute. "He's a minor. He doesn't get to refuse." "And you don't get to grab him because the sheriff wants a clean narrative," Klein replied. "State your name." She hesitated. "For the record," Klein repeated. "Marcy led," she snapped. Dalton's voice stayed flat. "Marcy, he's not in danger here." The taller deputy's eyes swept the yard, landing on the bikes. "He is." Dalton didn't blink. "From who?" The detective stepped up, impatience leaking through the mask. "We're conducting a welfare check. Step aside." Klein kept recording. "Then do it from outside the gate." Noah heard Cody behind him, small voice shaking. "They're trying to take you." Elena pulled her son close, eyes wet, trying to keep her own breathing steady. "Ray," she whispered, "please don't." "I'm not," Dalton said without turning. "They are." Marcy jabbed a finger at Noah through the fence. "There, open the gate." Dalton didn't move. "No." The badgeman stepped away, made a call, then returned with his face harder. "Sheriff Pruitt says you're obstructing a lawful pickup." Klein nodded once as if he'd expected it. "Put him on speaker." A tinny voice answered almost immediately. "What is this?" Klein angled his phone so the recording caught it. "Sheriff, you're using juvenile services to take a witness. No charges, no valid order." Pruitt's laugh was short and cold. "He's a runaway. He belongs in intake." "He was released last night under sponsorship to avoid detention," Klein said. "Your paper is invalid." Pruitt's voice sharpened. "You want to argue paperwork while an outlaw club harbors a minor?" Dalton stepped closer to Klein's phone, still not touching the gate. "You want to argue harboring while a county truck tries to run the kid down in daylight?" A half beat of silence. Then Pruitt came back slower. "You saying that on record?" Dalton's eyes didn't move. "We have a plate and a witness." Klein slid the hook in, smooth and deliberate. "Sheriff, answer this. Is Deputy Inspector Marsh assigned to the White County Utility Truck Plate 73J942? Silence again, longer this time. Noah watched the badgeman outside the gate stiffen, eyes flicking away, jaw tightening like he'd been named without being named. Pruitt's voice returned, clipped. "I don't answer to you." "You answer to the court," Klein said. "Back off." Marcy's patience snapped. "This is done," she hissed, turning to the deputies. "Open it." The taller deputy moved to the latch. Every rider in the yard shifted at once, ready but held. Dalton's palm lowered again, stilling them like he was pressing the air flat. Dalton turned slightly to the yard without taking his eyes off the gate. "Hands visible," he said, not loud. "Nobody touches that fence. Let them be the only ones acting crazy." Phones came up across the yard, dozens of small lenses aimed outward, quiet and steady. Outside, the badgeman edged half a step back when Klein said "Marsh," angling his body as if he suddenly remembered he didn't like being filmed. The unmarked SUVs shifted too, one rolling forward to block the service road like it was trying to create a private pocket away from the news van. Klein thumbed a message while still recording, screen briefly reflecting on his glasses. "Judge Herrera, county attempting forced entry, invalid order, media present." He hit send, then kept the phone steady like nothing had happened. If the county wanted to play paperwork games, he'd drag the court into the street with cameras rolling. The deputy yanked the latch. It didn't budge. He pulled harder. Nothing. Dalton's tone was almost bored. "It's locked," the deputy's eyes flashed. "Open it," Klein narrated quietly into his phone, calm as ice. "County attempting forced entry without warrant. Juvenile services present." The deputy walked back to the SUV. When he returned, he had bolt cutters. Noah's mouth went dry. The whole night folded over itself. Chains, locks, a kid on the wrong side of metal. The cutter jaws bit down on the chain. The deputy squeezed. Metal groaned, but the chain held. He tried again, face reddening, shoulders shaking. The chain didn't give. Dalton watched without expression. "That chain's rated for towing." The deputy ripped the cutters off and stepped closer to the fence, hands spread like he wanted to grab bars and shake the whole yard. "You think that stops us?" Klein didn't raise his voice. "It stops you from committing a felony on camera." A vehicle slowed at the intersection, a local news van. It hesitated, then turned onto the service road as if it had followed the smoke. A camera operator jumped out already filming. A reporter followed with a mic, eyes bright. Marcy's posture snapped into a public mask. "This is juvenile business," she called. "Step back." The reporter didn't. "Sheriff's office, can you confirm you're attempting to remove a minor from private property without a court order?" The detective forced a smile for the lens. "We're conducting a welfare check." Dalton's voice carried through the fence, calm. "The welfare issue is the county trying to take a witness with invalid paperwork." The reporter's eyebrows lifted. "Witness to what?" Klein kept his phone up. He didn't answer the question. He let the camera get a clean shot of the paper pressed to the fence. No seal, no stamp. Then he lifted his screen toward the reporter as if to say, "You see it too." Noah stood still, forcing his shoulders down, forcing his breathing slow. He felt like the storm drain again, water rising, everyone staring, the world deciding what he was. A rider jogged from the trailer and shoved a phone into Klein's hand. Klein glanced at the screen. His face changed. Dalton saw it instantly. "What?" Klein swallowed once, then turned the phone toward Dalton and Noah. "Pawn shop across the street," he said quietly. "Owner lied. He had a backup feed. He just sent it." Grainy night footage filled the screen. Rain streaks, headlights, the storm drain curb. Then the White County truck rolled into frame with its lights off. Lightning flashed. For a split second, the driver's face lit up behind the windshield. Noah's blood went cold. It wasn't a stranger. It was the county badge man standing at the gate, staring straight in at them. Noah stared at the phone screen until his eyes burned. The grainy footage shook with rain and wind, but the lightning had done its job. One hard flash, one clean frame, a face behind glass, the same face now standing outside the gate in a county windbreaker, watching them like he still had the right to decide what happened next. The county badge man noticed the shift instantly, not because anyone spoke, because every camera in the yard tilted a few degrees toward him at the exact same time. Klein didn't move fast. He moved precise. He turned the screen outward so the gate camera caught it, then angled it toward the reporter without stepping closer to the fence. "Zoom," Klein said quietly to the camera operator. "Right there." The reporter leaned in, eyes narrowing. "Is that—" Klein cut in, calm and deadly. "That is the same man standing at the gate right now. County badge. The one trying to take a minor with invalid paperwork." Outside the fence, the badge man's smile vanished. The skin around his eyes tightened. His hand drifted toward his belt like a reflex. Dalton's voice stayed low behind Noah. "Don't react," he said. "Let him show everybody who he is." Marcy Led snapped too loud. "That footage proves nothing. It's dark. It's distorted." The reporter lifted her mic. "Sir, can you state your name and title for the record?" The badge man didn't answer. He stared through the chain link at Klein's phone like he wanted to burn it. Klein spoke into his own camera, narrating like a man laying track in front of a train. "We have video of a county vehicle at the storm drain last night with its lights off. We have a witness statement of that same vehicle attempting to run him down today. And we have this frame identifying the driver." The taller deputy outside the gate stepped closer, shoulders squaring. "Turn that phone off." "No," Klein said. "Now," the deputy repeated. Klein didn't raise his voice. Put your hands on me or my property, and I'll have you on assault on camera." The deputy hesitated. He wasn't used to people saying no, not like this, not with lenses aimed at him from every angle. The badgeman finally spoke, voice clipped. "This is juvenile business. You're obstructing." The reporter pointed her mic at him again. "Sir, name and title." He ignored her and looked straight at Dalton. "You want to make this a circus?" Dalton's expression didn't change. "You brought the clowns." The badgeman's eyes flicked to Noah, and it hit Noah in the gut. The look wasn't law enforcement. It wasn't concern. It was recognition. Like Noah wasn't a kid. Like Noah was a loose end. Noah's mouth went dry. He felt Cody shift behind him, small hands grabbing the back of Dalton's shirt. Klein took one step to the side so the reporter could see the screen more clearly. "Judge Herrera has been notified," he said. "Copies of this footage are being sent to multiple parties right now." The badgeman's jaw tightened. "No, they're not." Klein's thumb moved on the screen. "Uploading." The badgeman lunged, not at the fence, not at Dalton, straight toward the phone, reaching through the chain link like the metal wasn't there. His fingers snagged the edge of Klein's device. For half a second, it looked like he might actually pull it through. Klein held on. "Hands off!" he snapped for the first time. The badgeman yanked harder, chain link rattling. The deputy stepped in, grabbing the fence to brace himself. Cameras caught everything, hands, faces, the badgeman trying to take evidence like it was contraband. Dalton's palm lifted again. "Nobody touches them," he warned his own people, voice calm but sharp. Noah saw riders tense, fists clenching, but they didn't move. They stayed disciplined, exactly like Dalton ordered. The county men, on the other hand, looked ready to grab and drag. The reporter's voice cut through. "Sir, are you attempting to seize an attorney's phone without a warrant?" The badgeman's eyes flashed at her, then back to Klein. "Give it to me." Klein twisted his wrist, keeping the phone out of reach. "Say your name for the record," he shot back, "or I'll say it." The badgeman's nostrils flared. Klein said it anyway, loud enough for every microphone. "Deputy Inspector Marsh, County Infrastructure Oversight." Marsh went rigid. A beat too late, he tried to recover. "That's not," Klein interrupted. "Your truck was at the drain. Your truck tried to hit my client, and now you're trying to take a witness into a van with fake paperwork." Marsh let go of the phone like it burned him. He took a step back from the fence, breathing hard through his nose, eyes scanning the yard as if looking for an exit that didn't exist. The deputy beside him barked, "You're done recording." Klein didn't blink. "Recording is the only reason none of you have already done something you can't walk back." Marcy Lead's face was red now, but her voice turned sugary for the cameras. "This minor is in danger. He's being housed by a family you tried to criminalize at the hospital," Klein cut in, "and he is a witness to attempted homicide by a county vehicle. You want to talk danger? Let's talk that." The reporter swung her mic toward Marcy. "Ms. Lead, can you explain why Juvenile Services is here without a court-sealed pickup order?" Marcy's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes flicked to Marsh like she expected him to fix it. Marsh's gaze stayed locked on Klein's phone. Klein's screen pinged, upload complete. He exhaled once, controlled. Then he raised the phone toward the gate camera and spoke clearly. "Evidence preserved." Noah felt his knees go weak with relief he didn't trust, the kind that comes right before things get worse. A siren whooped once in the distance, not approaching fast, just enough to let everyone know more units were on the way. Marsh's head turned toward the sound, his lips pressed together like he'd just realized this wasn't staying local. Dalton shifted slightly, keeping his body between Noah and the fence without making it obvious. "You okay?" he asked Noah, low. Noah swallowed. "That's the guy," he whispered. "That's the guy who watched me pull Cody out." Dalton's jaw flexed. "I know." Klein's phone rang again. He answered on speaker without hesitation. Judge Herrera's voice came through sharp and awake. "Mr. Klein." "Yes, Your Honor," Klein said, still filming with his other device. "I have received your message and I am viewing the footage now," the judge said. "Sheriff Pruitt is being notified as we speak. No one is to remove that minor from that property without a properly issued order. If they attempt forced entry, I will hold individuals in contempt personally." Outside the fence, Marcy Lead's face drained. One of the deputies muttered something under his breath. Judge Herrera continued, colder now. Deputy Inspector Marsh, if you are on scene, you are to step away and preserve all evidence immediately. Do you understand? Marsh's eyes snapped to the phone like it had named him in a church. He didn't answer. Judge Herrera's voice sharpened. Do you understand, Mr. Marsh? Marsh forced his mouth to move. Yes. Good, the judge said. Mr. Klein, do not allow that footage to be altered or seized. And for everyone present, this call is being logged. The line clicked off. For 2 seconds, nobody spoke. Even the rain sounded quieter. Then, Marcy Lead's clipboard shook slightly as she adjusted her grip. We're leaving, she said, too fast, too forced. This isn't over. The detective from last night stepped forward, trying to salvage control with a sneer. We can still bring charges: obstruction, harboring, endangerment. Klein held up his phone. Say it again for the cameras. The detective's jaw tightened. He didn't repeat it. Marsh backed away from the gate slowly, eyes still fixed on Noah like he wanted to memorize him, like he wanted Noah to remember him too. Then Marsh turned and walked to the SUV with his shoulders stiff. As he reached for the door handle, Dalton's voice carried through the fence, calm and direct. You put that lock on the drain, Marsh? Marsh froze for half a beat. He didn't answer. He got in the SUV. The unmarked vehicles rolled out first, tires crunching gravel like they were chewing their way out of a mistake. The juvenile van followed. Marcy didn't look back once. The deputies left last, faces tight, pretending this was just a routine visit that had run long. The reporter stayed, smelling blood in the story now. She looked through the fence at Noah. Can I talk to you? She called. Noah's throat closed up. He didn't know how to talk to cameras. He only knew how to survive them. Klein stepped in instantly. No. He is a minor and a protected witness, the reporter pivoted. Mr. Dalton, did a county official attempt to run this teen down? Dalton didn't answer her question. He answered the situation. You can report this, he said evenly, or you can report whatever the sheriff tells you to. The reporter blinked, then lifted her mic again. Sheriff's office will be asked for comment. Klein leaned toward Noah, voice low. Inside, he said, now. Noah moved with him, Cody close behind, Elena hovering like she was afraid the air outside could take her child back into the dark. In the trailer, Klein shut the door and locked it, then immediately started making calls, 2, 3, 4 in a row, words clipped, legal, sharp. Dalton stood near the window, watching the road beyond the fence. Noah tried to steady his breathing. So it's done? He asked, hating how hopeful his voice sounded. Klein didn't look up from his phone. It's documented, he corrected. That's different. Dalton's eyes stayed on the road. They'll change tactics. Noah's spare phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting another warning from Klein. Unknown number, one line of text. We know where the kid sleeps. Keep your mouth shut. The text sat on Noah's screen like a thumb on his throat. We know where the kid sleeps. Keep your mouth shut. For a second, he didn't move. He couldn't. His brain kept catching on the word kid, because in this world, kid could mean Cody, or it could mean him. Either way, it meant someone was done pretending this was about paperwork. Klein was mid-call at the desk when Noah stepped forward and silently held the phone out. Klein read it, and the temperature in the trailer dropped. He didn't ask who it was from. He didn't need to. He spun the screen toward Dalton. Dalton's eyes stayed on the message longer than Noah expected. When he finally looked up, his voice was calm in a way that made Noah's skin prickle. Elena, Dalton said, not loud. Take Cody inside the warehouse. Now, Elena's face drained. She pulled Cody by the shoulder, but Cody resisted immediately, eyes fixed on Noah. They're talking about me? Cody asked, voice rough from last night, but stubborn as ever. Dalton didn't lie to his son. Maybe, Cody's chin lifted. Then I'm staying right here. No, Dalton said. One word. No heat. No debate. Cody's eyes flashed, and for a second, Noah saw the same thing in them that he'd seen in the drain, that trapped, furious refusal to be powerless. Elena tightened her grip. Cody, please. Cody finally moved, but he didn't take his eyes off Noah as Elena let him out. Like Noah was the only person in the room who understood what it felt like to be treated like a piece on someone else's board. Klein saved a screenshot, then forwarded it to 3 different numbers so fast Noah barely tracked his thumbs. Judge, DA, and a federal contact, Klein muttered. Witness intimidation in writing. You can do that? Noah asked. I can do anything that makes them sweat, Klein said, then looked him straight in the eye. From this moment on, you do not go anywhere alone. You do not leave this fence. You don't step outside to breathe. You don't answer unknown numbers. You tell me every single time it buzzes. Noah nodded, but the anger was already heating in his chest. They're trying to scare me into disappearing. Dalton's voice cut in, low and controlled. They're trying to scare you into making a mistake. A rider stepped into the trailer doorway, helmet still on. Gus is back. Gus came in and put a small notepad on the desk like it was heavier than paper. Plates registered to County Fleet, he said, assigned to Marsh. Klein didn't look surprised. Good, that ties the truck to him without his mouth opening, Gus went on. Also, Harridan's foreman is tight with Marsh, been seen together at the site more than once. Noah's stomach tightened. So the drain, we don't know the whole chain yet, Klein said. But we know Marsh isn't just some county guy doing a job. He's active. Dalton leaned back against the wall, arms folded, eyes distant like he was already moving pieces. He tried to take you in a juvenile van, he said to Noah. He tried to run you down with his truck. Now he's texting threats. Noah swallowed. So what happens now? Dalton's gaze snapped back. Now we don't wait for him to come again on his terms. Klein held up a hand. Careful with that, Ray. Dalton didn't argue. He just looked at Noah again. Tell me something, Noah. Before you heard Cody screaming, did you see anyone near that drain? Footsteps? A silhouette? Anything? Noah tried to replay it. Rain, spray, headlights, his own panic. I didn't see a person, he admitted, but I felt like somebody had been there. The chain was too clean, like it hadn't been sitting in weather, and there was that truck, waiting. Klein nodded once. He wasn't surprised. That's the part I can't get past. The warehouse door opened and Elena came in alone, eyes red. He's asking questions, she said, voice trembling. He keeps saying he wants to tell you something he didn't say last night. Dalton's jaw flexed. Bring him. A minute later, Cody walked in, shoulders tense, hoodie swallowed up to his chin. He looked smaller in daylight, like the storm had burned off the armor and left just a kid. He went straight to Noah. You're bleeding, Cody said, staring at the taped cut on Noah's cheek like it offended him. It's nothing, Noah said automatically. Cody shook his head hard. It's not nothing. They did that. And I heard Dad talking. I heard the name, Marsh. Noah's throat tightened. You know him? Cody's eyes dropped for a split second, then came back up. I saw him before I went in the drain. The room went silent. Dalton didn't move, but his voice got quieter. Start from the beginning, Cody swallowed. I wasn't supposed to be out. I know, but I rode my bike past the grocery store. I went behind it. There's that new development, Harridan. There's always trucks, and they leave stuff where they shouldn't. He glanced at his father, then kept going fast before he lost nerve. I saw men dumping something gray into a ditch, like wet concrete, but they were pouring it where water flows. Klein leaned forward. You're sure? Cody nodded. I asked what they were doing. One guy yelled at me to get lost. Then another guy came out of a truck and he had a county jacket. He wasn't in a hard hat. He wasn't working. He was just watching. Noah felt the hairs lift on his arms. Marsh. Cody's mouth tightened. Yeah, I didn't know his name then, but I know his face. He looked at me like I was a problem. Cody's voice cracked. Then the workers started coming toward me, not to talk, to grab me. So I ran. Elena pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling. Cody kept going, faster, breathy. It was raining so hard I couldn't see. I cut down the street and went into the drain because I thought I could wait it out. I didn't think it would flood. I didn't think... His eyes flicked to Noah, shame and fear tangled together. Then I heard the chain. I heard metal. Somebody was outside. I yelled. I heard someone laugh. Noah's stomach dropped. You heard a laugh. Cody nodded, miserable. Then the lock clicked and the footsteps left. Dalton's face didn't change, but Noah saw his hands, his fists, tighten and release once, like he was forcing control back into his body. Klein's voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. This is motive, he said, if Cody saw dumping and they're redirecting runoff and a storm hits. Then someone locks a drain to force water elsewhere or trap a witness. Noah's mouth went dry. They locked it to trap him. Cody looked at Noah, eyes glassy. I thought I was going to die down there. Noah didn't know what to say. The only thing he had was truth. You almost did. The trailer door opened again, another rider moving fast. Klein, he said, we got a problem. Klein stood. What? Your office line got a call from the shelter. They found Noah's bag. The rider hesitated. Sort of. Noah's pulse jumped. Where? By the overpass, the rider said, near the drain, like it was dropped there. Staff says it showed up out of nowhere. Dalton's eyes narrowed. That's bait. Noah felt anger flare hot. That's my stuff. Klein snapped his gaze to Noah, and that's why it's bait. Noah stood up anyway. So what, I just let them take everything and keep pushing me around? Dalton's voice cut in, calm but final. You don't go. Noah's jaw clenched. You can't tell me. Dalton stepped closer, not threatening, just undeniable. I can if it keeps you breathing. Cody suddenly stepped forward. It's a trap, he said, voice tight. It has to be. Noah looked at him and saw the fear under the stubbornness. Cody wasn't thinking about a backpack. He was thinking about chains. Klein exhaled once, then made a decision with his whole face. We go, he said. Dalton's head turned sharply. Eddie, Klein held his ground. We go smart. We go recorded. We go with distance and discipline. Because if Marsh is baiting him in public, he's either desperate or he thinks he's covered. Either way, he makes mistakes. Dalton stared at him for a long beat, then nodded once. Fine, Klein pointed at Noah. You do exactly what I say. If I say stop, you stop. If I say run, you run. Noah nodded, throat tight. He didn't trust it. He didn't trust any plan that involved going back. But the idea of his bag sitting out there like a trophy made something inside him refuse to stay quiet. Dalton turned to Elena. You and Cody stay. Cody's eyes widened. No, I'm going. Dalton's voice went harder. No, Cody took a step forward anyway. It's because of me. They locked it because I saw them. Dalton's eyes flashed. And if you go back out there, they'll try again. You're staying. Cody looked like he might explode. Then he swallowed it down with effort that made him shake. He glared at Noah like he was begging him not to do something stupid. Noah didn't promise anything. He just followed Klein out. They didn't roll in a convoy this time. No loud line of bikes. Klein and Noah went in the old sedan. Dalton followed 2 blocks back in the black pickup with only one bike shadowing far behind, just enough to watch, not enough to announce. By the time they reached the overpass, the light was falling. The street had that gray-blue dusk that made everything look like it was holding its breath. Klein parked half a block away. Phone on record, he said to Noah. Now. Noah hit record with a thumb that wouldn't stop trembling. They walked toward the curb together, slow, like any 2 people passing through. The storm drain sat in its usual place, innocent in daylight. And right beside it, half tucked behind the curb like someone had tried to make it look casual, was Noah's backpack. His chest tightened so hard it hurt. Klein grabbed Noah's sleeve. Don't touch it yet. Noah stared. The duct tape on the strap, the frayed seam, the exact shape of his life. Then he saw something else. A thin chain, freshly coiled on the sidewalk, still wet as if it had been rinsed clean. Noah's throat went dry. They're here, he whispered. Klein didn't answer. He just lifted his phone slightly, filming the chain, filming the bag, filming the drain. A vehicle door closed somewhere behind them, not close enough to see in the first second, close enough to hear. Klein's voice dropped to almost nothing. Keep recording. Footsteps approached, measured, unhurried, like whoever was walking didn't care if Noah heard them coming. Noah turned his head just enough to look. Deputy Inspector Marsh stepped out from behind a parked SUV, county windbreaker on, face calm. 2 men flanked him in dark hoodies, contractor build, heavy hands, eyes that didn't blink much. Marsh smiled like this was a normal conversation on a normal sidewalk. Evening, Noah, he said. Let's talk about what you think you saw. Noah felt his body go cold, and behind him, in the same instant, he heard the soft, unmistakable click of a gun being taken off safety. The click was soft, almost polite, but it cut through Noah's blood like an alarm. Klein didn't flinch. He didn't lower his phone. He angled it higher, catching Marsh's face, the two men beside him, and the drain curb with Noah's backpack sitting there like a staged confession. "Deputy Inspector Marsh," Klein said evenly, loud enough for the mic to grab it. "Confirm your name for the record." Marsh's smile stayed. "You're still playing lawyer." "No," Klein replied. "I'm playing witness. Big difference." Noah's throat tightened. His thumb hovered over the screen like he could press hard enough to make this not real. The red recording dot kept blinking, indifferent. Marsh took a slow step closer, hands relaxed at his sides. His body language was calm, which made it worse. People who were afraid of consequences moved fast. People who believed they were untouchable moved like this. "You did a good thing," Marsh said, voice almost warm. "Dragging the kid out. Real heroic. Town's gonna love that story." Noah didn't answer. Marsh's gaze shifted to the backpack. "But then you started telling stories about county trucks, about locks, about me." His eyes lifted back to Noah. "That's where your luck ends." Klein spoke into the camera, narrating like he was reading a police report. "We are being approached on a public sidewalk by Deputy Inspector Marsh and two unidentified men. One of the men appears armed. The man on Marsh's right, a thick-necked contractor type with a hoodie pulled tight, tilted his head and smiled without showing teeth. His hand stayed low near his waistband. Marsh's smile hardened. "Turn that off." "No," Klein said again, like the word was a door he could keep shut by sheer will. Marsh's eyes flicked once to Klein's phone. "You think video makes you safe?" "It makes you accountable," Klein corrected. Marsh exhaled through his nose. "Eddie, you're a smart guy. Don't die over a homeless runaway." Noah's stomach turned. Runaway. They kept saying it like it gave them permission. Klein didn't glance at Noah. He kept the lens on Marsh. "Threatening a minor witness is a felony." Marsh's expression didn't change. "Who's threatening? I'm talking. You're the one escalating." One of the men beside Marsh shifted his feet, positioning his body slightly between Marsh and the street, creating a pocket, a little wall, a little privacy in plain sight. Noah's pulse spiked. "Don't," he blurted, and hated how small his voice sounded. Marsh's eyes slid to him. "Don't what?" Noah forced himself to breathe. "Don't act like you didn't lock that drain." Marsh paused as if considering whether to laugh. Then he nodded once, slow. "You're convinced of that?" "I saw your truck," Noah said, voice shaking but louder now. "Lights off. I'm watching." Marsh's smile finally faded. "You saw a truck?" Klein kept recording. "Marsh, why was your county vehicle at that drain in the storm with its lights off?" Marsh didn't answer the question. He stepped closer, stopping just outside arm's reach. "You want a deal, Noah?" Noah's mouth went dry. "What deal?" Marsh's eyes were flat. "You say you panicked. You say you broke the lock to help and made it worse. You say you lied about a truck because you thought it would get you a payout from Dalton." Noah stared at him. "That's not what happened." Marsh lifted his shoulders in a fake shrug. "It could be." Klein's voice stayed calm. "This is coercion." Marsh glanced at Klein like a fly had spoken. "And this is a conversation I'm having with the kid." His gaze snapped back to Noah. "You want a bed? Food? Some cash? We can make you comfortable. You walk away. You get helped." Noah's hands clenched so hard his nails bit his palms. "You mean you buy me?" Marsh's eyes cooled. "I mean I solve your problem. You don't have papers, you don't have a guardian, you don't have a life anyone will fight for." He nodded toward the backpack. "That's your whole world right there. I can take it, or I can give you more." Noah's chest tightened. He could hear Dalton's voice from earlier. "They'll change tactics." Marsh leaned slightly closer. "Or," he said softly, "I can make sure you never find another shelter bed in this county. I can make sure intake holds you until you age out. You'll disappear. Nobody will remember your name because you don't even have one on paper." Klein's voice sharpened by 1 degree. "Step back." Marsh's eyes flicked to Klein. "Or what?" Klein held his ground. "Or you're on camera threatening a minor." Marsh's lips pressed together. Then he nodded to the armed man. The man's hand came out, not fast, smooth. A compact handgun appeared like it had been there the whole time. He didn't point it at Marsh's enemies like a movie. He pointed it at the ground in front of Noah's shoes and tilted it upward just enough to make the message clear. Noah's breath vanished. Klein's voice stayed steady, but it was tight now. "Weapon displayed," he narrated. "Armed intimidation." Marsh watched Noah's face, studying him. "Now," Marsh said quietly, "you're going to hand Eddie the phone." Klein didn't move. Marsh's gaze shifted to Klein. "You're going to hand it over." Klein spoke in the same even tone, like he was still in a courtroom. "Touch me or my device, and you're committing robbery and obstruction on camera." The armed man's finger rested beside the trigger, not on it. That was the terrifying part. He wasn't jittery. He wasn't scared. He was controlled. Marsh smiled again, thin. "You think a camera matters when you're dead?" Noah's throat tightened so hard it hurt. His brain screamed to run, but his legs refused. He couldn't outrun a bullet. He couldn't outrun a county system. He couldn't outrun the fact that he had walked back here because a backpack mattered more than fear. Klein's phone pinged quietly. Some notification. Klein didn't look down, but Noah saw Marsh's eyes twitch toward it, hungry. Marsh's voice dropped. "Give it." Klein finally shifted, just a small movement. Noah thought he was handing the phone over. Instead, Klein raised his voice, clear and loud enough for anyone within 50 yards. "Help! Gun! Public sidewalk!" The words cracked the air. Marsh's face flashed with something real, surprise, then anger. The armed man's shoulders tensed. Then engines answered, not a roar, a sudden presence, like thunder rolling in from behind the buildings. Noah's head snapped toward the street. A bike slid into view at the intersection, then another, then three more, moving fast but controlled, spreading out, cutting off lanes without weaving. Dalton's black pickup rolled in behind them, not speeding, just arriving like it had been there all along. Marsh's eyes flicked toward the bikes and then back to Noah, calculating. The armed man's gun rose a fraction, not aimed, just lifted in reflex. Klein didn't stop recording. He angled his phone to catch the bikes arriving, Dalton stepping out of the pickup, and Marsh's men tightening up. Dalton didn't charge. He walked steady, eyes locked on the gun. His hands were visible, open. "Put it away," Dalton said, quiet, not a shout, a fact. The armed man smirked. "Or what?" Dalton didn't answer him. He kept his eyes on Marsh. "This is your move?" Marsh's jaw tightened. "He came back to the scene. That's on him." Klein's voice cut in. "He was lured here with bait and threatened with a firearm by county personnel and contractors, all on video." Marsh's eyes flicked to Klein's phone again, and something in him snapped. "Take it," Marsh hissed. The armed man stepped toward Klein, gun still in hand. A rider moved between them instantly, palms up, not touching, just blocking. Another rider moved to Noah's side, shoulder angled protectively without grabbing him. Dalton's voice stayed low. "Don't." The armed man's eyes flashed. "Move." The rider didn't. The gun shifted, just a fraction, a decision starting. Noah's lungs seized, and then the shot happened. It wasn't a dramatic blast into a chest. It was worse, because it was meant to be controlled. The armed man fired into the wet pavement near the rider's feet, a warning that shattered the normal world in one violent crack. Concrete chips snapped up. Noah flinched hard, ears ringing. The rider didn't run. He stumbled back half a step as fragments bit his boot. "Gun!" someone yelled from a passing car. The street erupted. Doors slammed. A woman screamed. Dalton moved fast now, still not swinging, not grabbing the gun. He shoved Noah backward with one arm and barked, "Down!" Noah hit the ground on instinct, shoulder slamming wet asphalt. His phone stayed in his hand, still recording, pointed at nothing but his own shaking fingers and the curb. Klein's voice was still audible, loud and sharp. "Shots fired! Shots fired! County personnel present!" Then chaos hit in layers. More bikes arrived from the side street, not swarming, forming a wide perimeter. Someone pulled Cody's backpack out of the danger zone with a boot and kicked it away from the drain like it was radioactive. Someone else shoved Klein behind a parked car while keeping a camera up. Marsh's men tried to retreat, and that was when Marsh made his second mistake. He reached down, grabbed the coiled chain near the curb, and flung it toward the storm drain, like he wanted it to disappear, like he wanted to erase the proof that someone had staged this. Dalton saw it. "You touched that," Dalton said, voice like steel, "and you just confessed." Marsh froze mid-motion, chain hanging from his hand like a snake. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer fast. The armed man's eyes darted toward the sound. He grabbed Marsh's elbow. "We gotta go." Marsh's face was tight, furious, but he let the chain drop. It clattered loud on the sidewalk. He backed toward the SUV, eyes still on Noah. Then the armed man did something Noah would never forget. He turned his gun toward Noah, not fully aiming, not pointing straight at his face, but enough to make the threat personal. Then he smiled, and he slid into the SUV. Marsh climbed in after him. The vehicle peeled out, tires spraying water, cutting across the lane before the first patrol car rounded the corner. Two cruisers screeched up, officers spilled out with hands on weapons, eyes wide, trying to process a scene filled with bikers, a homeless teen on the ground, and shell smoke in the air. "Hands!" an officer shouted. "Hands where I can see them!" Dalton raised his hands, calm. Riders raised theirs too. Phones stayed up. Klein stepped out from behind the car, holding his phone high. "We have video," he shouted over the noise. "Shots fired by an armed contractor with a county official present. The suspects fled east in an unmarked SUV. Plate?" A cop cut him off. "Shut up and step back," Dalton's voice cut through. "Your people were here." The cop snapped his head toward Dalton. "Who the hell are you?" "You know," Dalton said. The cop's eyes flicked, recognition, fear. The balance shifted. Then another patrol unit arrived, and Sheriff Pruitt himself stepped out. Noah, still on the ground, lifted his head just enough to see Pruitt's face as he took in the scene. The shell casing glinting near the curb, the chain on the sidewalk, the backpack, the cameras. For the first time, Pruitt looked like a man who had not expected to walk into the truth. He forced his expression back into shape and pointed at Noah. "That one," he barked. "Get him up, now." Noah's stomach dropped. Even now, even after a shot, they were still reaching for him first. A deputy grabbed Noah's arm and yanked. Pain flared through his shoulder. Klein stepped in instantly. "Do not touch him without medical," he snapped. "He's a minor and a protected witness." Pruitt didn't look at Klein. He looked at Noah like Noah was the problem that kept refusing to go away. "We're taking him to the hospital," Pruitt said. "And then he's going into intake until we verify who he is." Noah's mouth went dry. "No." Pruitt leaned in, voice low enough to be private, loud enough for Noah to feel it. "You think those bikers keep you safe in my county? I'll put you somewhere they can't reach." Dalton stepped closer, controlled fury vibrating under his calm. "Touch him the wrong way, and you'll have every camera in this state on your face." Pruitt's jaw clenched. "This is my scene." Klein raised his phone. "And this is my evidence." An ambulance arrived, lights splashing red across wet asphalt. Paramedics pushed through, eyes sharp, hands quick. One of them knelt by Noah, checking his head, his shoulder, the small slice on his cheek that had reopened and started bleeding again. "You hit your head?" the paramedic asked. Noah shook his head, dizzy anyway. "No." "You sure?" the paramedic pressed. Noah's eyes flicked to Pruitt, then to Dalton, then to Klein. "I'm sure," he said, because he didn't trust what would happen if he wasn't. They loaded him into the ambulance anyway. As the doors closed, Noah caught one last look through the small window. Pruitt was talking to his deputies with his back turned to the cameras, posture tight. Klein stood a few feet away, filming, refusing to be pushed out. Dalton didn't move. He just watched like a guard dog that didn't bark. At the hospital, the world went bright and sterile again. Nurses moved fast. Questions came in rapid fire. A doctor checked Noah's shoulder, taped his cheek, shined a light in his eyes. "Do you have a guardian?" the nurse asked. Noah stared at the ceiling tiles. "No." The nurse's face softened, then tightened like it always did when paperwork entered the room. "Then, we need to contact juvenile services." Klein appeared at the curtain like he'd materialized out of rage. "Not without counsel present," he said. A hospital security guard hovered. A uniformed deputy lingered in the doorway, pretending he was there for safety. Noah lay on the bed listening to voices outside the curtain, Pruitt's low tone, Klein's sharp legal words, Dalton's calm threat of visibility. Then the doctor leaned in close and spoke quietly, like she didn't want the deputy to hear. "There are officers here asking when you're discharged," she said. "They say they're taking you straight to intake." Noah's stomach dropped. He turned his head and saw the deputy in the doorway shift his weight, hand resting casually near his cuffs, eyes fixed on Noah like the decision had already been made. The deputy in the doorway didn't have to say anything. His posture said it for him, waiting like a tow truck, waiting like Noah was property. Klein stood between the curtain and the uniform, phone already in his hand, voice steady but sharp. He is not being transported to intake without a court order, not today, not after shots were fired at him on a public sidewalk. The deputy's eyes flicked to the doctor, then back to Noah, like he was measuring how much trouble it would be to ignore Klein. "Sheriff says, Sheriff isn't a judge," Klein snapped. Noah lay still, staring at the ceiling tiles, forcing his breathing to stay even. He'd learned how fast a room could turn, how quickly hospital could become handoff. The doctor cleared her throat. "He's not cleared for discharge yet," she said, and Noah heard the small emphasis. She was buying time. The deputy's jaw tightened. "Let us know when he is." Klein didn't blink. "We'll let the court know first." The deputy stepped back, radio crackling as he moved to the hall. The sound of his boots faded, but the pressure didn't. Noah knew he was still there, just out of sight, like a hook set in the wall. Dalton came in 10 minutes later. No loud entrance, no swagger. He carried Cody's little leather vest folded neatly in his hands like it was evidence, not clothing. His eyes went to Noah's taped cheek, then to Noah's bruised wrists, and his jaw flexed once. "They're staging intake," Dalton said quietly to Klein. Klein nodded. "I'm staging a judge." He didn't waste time. He stepped out into the hall, made 2 calls, then came back in already typing. His voice stayed calm, but his fingers moved fast. "Emergency protective order, witness intimidation, shots fired, county official present, juvenile, no guardian." He looked at Noah. "This is the part where the system tries to swallow you because you don't have paperwork. I'm not letting that happen." Noah swallowed. "They can still take me." "They can try," Klein said, "but trying on camera is different than trying in the dark." Outside, the hallway filled in small ways. An extra deputy, a hospital security guard, a nurse who kept hovering like she didn't want Noah left alone. Noah caught pieces of conversations through the curtain. Juvenile van, sheriff wants him released, attorney won't cooperate, media outside. Media. Noah turned his head slightly and saw it through the sliver in the curtain, bright lights reflecting off tile, a woman with a mic talking to someone off camera. He couldn't hear the words, but he could see the rhythm of it, the story growing teeth. Dalton's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and exhaled through his nose. "They're coming," he said. Noah's stomach dropped. "Who?" Dalton didn't answer with a name. He answered with sound. From outside the hospital, faint at first, then heavier. Engines. Not chaotic, not angry. Just a steady gathering hum, like thunder choosing a direction. The deputy in the hall noticed too. Noah heard the radio chatter jump up a notch. Someone said parking lot, and someone else said, "Keep it calm." Klein stepped to the curtain and pulled it back an inch to look. "Good," he murmured. Noah stared at him. "Good?" Klein's eyes didn't leave the hall. "It means they can't pretend you vanished." That afternoon, the judge's order came through on a single sheet of paper that somehow weighed more than steel. Klein held it up like a shield and walked it straight to the charge nurse, then to hospital administration, then to the deputy who'd been waiting like a trap. "Court-ordered protective placement," Klein said, voice loud enough that any phone in the hallway could record. "He is released into temporary care, under verified supervision pending hearing. You interfere, you answer to Judge Herrera personally." The deputy read it, mouth tight, then stepped back like the paper stung. Pruitt showed up an hour later, late enough to claim he just got notified, early enough to still try to control the outcome. He stood at the end of the hall with 2 deputies, eyes cutting toward the room. Noah watched him through the curtain gap, heart thudding. Pruitt didn't come in. He didn't want to be recorded saying the wrong thing. He just looked at Klein and nodded once, an ugly little acknowledgement. Klein walked back into Noah's room and lowered his voice. "Hearing is tomorrow morning." Noah's mouth went dry. "Court?" Klein nodded. "Fast-tracked. They wanted you processed before you could speak. Now we speak in a room where lies cost more." Noah stared at his bandaged hand. "I don't even have—" "I know. Klein said. "We're not pretending you're something you're not. We're showing what they did anyway." Dalton stepped closer, calm but firm. "You'll have people there," he said. Noah swallowed. "I don't want a war." Dalton's eyes didn't change. "Neither do I." That night, Noah didn't sleep. He sat in the back office of the warehouse again, listening to phones ring and printers spit out pages, and men talk in low voices like they were defusing a bomb made of paperwork. He watched Cody through a cracked door, awake too, sitting with Elena, eyes wide, hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands like armor. At some point, Cody slipped out and sat across from Noah without asking. "You scared?" Cody asked. Noah almost lied. Then he remembered the chain, the laugh, the click of a gun safety. "Yeah," he said. Cody nodded like that was acceptable. "Me too." They sat in silence. Outside, bikes rolled in one by one, quiet, lights low. Not a show, a presence. Before sunrise, Klein handed Noah a clean button-down shirt and a jacket that didn't fit perfectly, but fit enough to change the way strangers would look at him for 10 seconds. Noah hated that it mattered. He wore it anyway. They drove to the courthouse in a plain sedan with 2 bikes so far back they looked like commuters. The closer they got, the more the town felt different, roads lined with parked motorcycles like a river of metal. Riders stood in small groups, not blocking traffic, not shouting, just standing shoulder to shoulder as if the pavement itself had decided to grow a spine. Noah's throat tightened. "How many?" Klein didn't smile. "A lot." By the time they turned the last corner, Noah understood what a lot meant. The courthouse steps were surrounded, not invaded, surrounded, by rows and rows of bikes stretching down both sides of the street. Riders stood with hands in pockets, helmets under arms, rain jackets zipped, faces calm. Some held small signs, not threats. Simple words: support the witness, let him speak, justice. A local church group had set up a folding table with coffee. A woman in a nurse's jacket handed out donuts, like this was a community event. Someone had a cardboard box labeled Legal Fund with bills already stuffed inside. Noah's chest hurt in a way that didn't feel like fear. It felt like something he didn't have a name for. Then he saw the number painted on a banner stretched between 2 lampposts. 900. Klein leaned in close as they stepped out. "Look straight ahead," he murmured. "Let them see you're real." Noah walked toward the steps with Klein beside him, Dalton behind them, and the sound of engines idling in the distance like a heartbeat. Cameras flashed. A reporter called out Noah's name like she'd owned it her whole life. Inside, the courthouse was suddenly too small for what was happening outside. Deputies lined the hallway, tense, eyes darting. A clerk whispered into a phone like she was trying to keep a lid on boiling water. They tried to separate Noah from Klein at the courtroom door. "No minors beyond this point without guardian," Klein lifted the order. "Court-appointed placement," he said, "and I'm counsel." The deputy stepped aside. In the courtroom, Pruitt sat with the county attorney, jaw locked. He didn't look at Noah. He didn't want to acknowledge him as a person. Across the aisle, a man Noah hadn't seen before sat stiff-backed in a suit with a bruised face and a bandage on his hand. One of the contractors, maybe, already processed by someone who didn't care about his comfort. Marsh wasn't there. Noah felt a cold pulse of relief and dread at the same time. Judge Herrera entered, and the room rose. Her eyes swept the courtroom once, then landed on Noah. Not soft, not cruel, just focused, like she was deciding what mattered. "We are here," the judge said, "because a minor witness reports a child was trapped behind a padlocked storm drain during a severe storm, and subsequent events include attempted coercion, intimidation, and a firearm discharge in public." The county attorney stood. "Your Honor, the sheriff's office disputes—" "Sit," the judge said, not loud. "I will hear facts." Klein stood first. He didn't perform. He placed the broken story on the table, piece by piece. The photos of the fresh scrape marks, the witness statement, the text message thread, the plate number, and finally the pawnshop footage. He asked the clerk to play it. The grainy video filled the courtroom monitor. Rain, darkness, the curb, the drain, then the white county truck with its lights off. Lightning flashed, the frame froze. The judge leaned forward slightly. The courtroom went still. Klein didn't even look at Pruitt. He looked at the judge. "Deputy Inspector Marsh," he said clearly. "On scene, in the vehicle." The county attorney stood too fast. "Objection! Identity?" Judge Herrera's gaze cut him in half. "Denied." Elena testified next, hands shaking but voice steady as she repeated what Cody told her, being chased, hiding, hearing the chain, hearing a laugh. Then Cody himself took the stand, small in the chair, hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands, eyes fixed on the judge like he was trying to make her see him as a person and not a kid. He described the dumping behind the grocery store. He described the county jacket. He described running. He described hearing the lock click shut. Pruitt's face tightened harder with every sentence. Then it was Noah's turn. The deputy swore him in like it tasted bad. Noah stood, palms damp, and told the truth exactly the way it happened. Scream, chain, lock, water rising, rebar, pulling Cody out, county truck watching. He didn't embellish. He didn't beg. He just spoke. When he finished, the judge asked one question, calm as a knife. "Mr. Noah," she said, "after you were accused, after you were cuffed, after you were threatened, why did you keep showing up to tell this?" Noah swallowed. The whole room was listening, even the people who hated him. "Because he was a kid," Noah said quietly. "And somebody thought that meant nobody would care." Judge Herrera held his gaze for a long beat. Then she turned to the county attorney. "Where is Deputy Inspector Marsh?" she asked. The county attorney's mouth opened. No sound came out. Judge Herrera's voice stayed level. "Sheriff Pruitt." Pruitt looked up slowly, forced into the open. "Did your department attempt to remove this minor witness under an invalid juvenile pickup order?" the judge asked. "Yes or no?" Pruitt's jaw worked. "We were conducting a welfare." "Yes or no?" the judge repeated, softer. Pruitt's eyes flicked to the cameras in the back of the room, then to the judge. "Yes?" The room made a sound like air being pulled in. Judge Herrera looked down at her notes, then up again, and her voice changed, no longer curious, no longer gathering. "It is the finding of this court," she said, "that this minor is a protected witness, that his detention efforts were improper, and that probable cause exists regarding obstruction, witness intimidation, and the misuse of county authority." Her gavel lifted, and then she brought it down hard. The gavel crack didn't sound loud, but it landed like a door slamming shut on a whole way of doing things. Judge Herrera didn't look at the gallery. She looked straight at Sheriff Pruitt, and her voice stayed level, almost clinical, which somehow made it worse. "This court orders immediate protective placement for the minor witness," she said. "He will not be transferred to intake without sealed judicial authorization. Any attempt to remove him outside these terms will be treated as contempt." Klein didn't move. He just exhaled, slow, like he'd been holding air since the storm. Noah felt his knees go weak in a delayed wave. He kept standing because he didn't know what else to do with relief. His hands were still damp, but his wrists stopped hurting for the first time in 24 hours because the threat behind the cuffs had finally been named out loud. Judge Herrera continued. "I'm also referring this matter to the district attorney's office and requesting state-level oversight for any county personnel involved. Mr. Klein will submit copies of all recordings, including the threatening text message and the sidewalk incident. A temporary restraining order is issued against any contact with the witness." She turned a page. "And I want Deputy Inspector Marsh in this courtroom by the end of today." The county attorney stood again like he couldn't help himself. "Your Honor, with respect, we can't compel an individual's appearance." "You can when you know where he is," Judge Herrera replied. "Sit." The word wasn't loud, but the county attorney sat like he'd been pushed. Pruitt's jaw worked. His eyes flicked toward the back of the room where cameras were posted, then toward the window as if he could see the street outside and the line of motorcycles beyond it. He looked trapped without ever being touched. Judge Herrera wasn't finished. "I will also hear from the sheriff's office regarding why an invalid pickup document was presented on private property," she said. "And I will hear why a county vehicle assigned to Mr. Marsh was at the storm drain with its lights off during the storm." Noah glanced at Klein. Klein's face didn't change, but his eyes were brighter now, sharper. This was what he'd been building toward, forcing them to answer in a room with consequences. The judge looked back to Noah, and her expression softened by a fraction. Not pity. Recognition. "Mr. Noah," she said, "you are not under investigation by this court. You are a witness who performed a rescue. You will be treated accordingly." Noah swallowed and nodded once because his voice wouldn't come out without shaking. Then the judge lifted the gavel again. "This hearing is adjourned," she said. "Mr. Klein, see me in chambers. Sheriff Pruitt, do not leave." The second gavel strike ended it, not the problem, but the illusion that the county could do whatever it wanted without anyone watching. In the hallway outside the courtroom, noise hit like a wave. Reporters, deputies, court staff trying to keep lanes open, people whispering the same name like it had grown teeth. Marsh. Klein guided Noah forward with a hand at his shoulder. Dalton moved behind them, not crowding, just there. The courthouse felt smaller now, like the building knew it couldn't contain what was standing outside. A reporter pushed in. Noah, can you tell us?" Klein stepped in front of the mic instantly. "He is a minor," he said. "He will not be interviewed." Another camera swung toward Dalton. "Mr. Dalton, will you comment on allegations of county corruption?" Dalton didn't raise his voice. "Ask the sheriff." The words followed Pruitt down the hall like a shadow. When they finally reached the front steps, the sound met them before the sunlight did. Engines idling in a low, steady rumble. Not aggressive, not celebratory, just present. A wall of motorcycles lined the street in neat rows, riders standing beside them, faces calm, hands empty. It didn't look like a threat. It looked like a witness stand made of chrome. Noah stopped without meaning to. His chest tightened so hard it hurt. He'd never had people show up for him. Not teachers, not family, not cops, not shelters, no one. And now the street was filled with bodies who had shown up simply because he existed, and the county tried to crush him for it. Klein leaned in. "Keep walking," he murmured. "Let the cameras see your face, not their story. Yours." Noah forced his legs to move. Riders didn't cheer. They didn't shout his name. They just nodded as he passed, a quiet line of acknowledgement that felt heavier than applause. Someone stepped forward from the crowd, a woman in a nurse's jacket from the hospital, holding a small paper cup. "Water," she said softly, offering it to Noah like it was normal to take care of a kid outside a courthouse surrounded by 900 bikers. Noah took it with both hands. The cup shook. The water didn't spill. Across the street, 2 state troopers arrived and parked cleanly at the curb, their posture different from county deputies, more careful, less entitled. A third vehicle pulled in behind them, unmarked with tinted windows and no county seal. 2 men got out in plain clothes, scanning the crowd without fear or hostility, just alert. Klein saw them, and his face tightened in a new way. "DA's investigators," he said under his breath. "Good." Dalton's phone buzzed. He checked it once, then stepped closer to Klein. "Gus says Marsh's truck was seen heading north on the service road," Dalton murmured. "Fast." Klein's eyes sharpened. "He's running." Noah's stomach dropped again. "He can just leave." Klein looked at him. "Not if we make sure the right people hear it." He stepped away from the cameras, called someone, spoke low and quick. Names, plates, locations. Noah caught fragments. State, flight risk, tampering, public danger. Dalton watched the road beyond the bikes like he was listening to a different kind of weather. Then a rider weaved through the crowd toward Dalton, helmet under his arm, face wet with sweat that wasn't from the storm. "Ray," the rider said, voice tight. "Marsh is burning evidence." Dalton's jaw flexed once. "Where?" "Development site behind the grocery store," the rider said. "He's there with Harridan guys. They're moving drums, pouring something into a trench like they're trying to bury it." Noah's pulse kicked. The dumping Cody described, the gray slurry, the water flow. Klein's eyes went hard. "He's not just running," he said. "He's erasing." Dalton didn't make a speech. He didn't rev an engine. He did something quieter that scared Noah more. He looked at the crowd of riders and lifted 2 fingers. The movement wasn't dramatic, but it rippled. A handful of riders nodded and peeled off immediately, not in a mob, not in a pack, like trained volunteers leaving a scene they didn't want to contaminate. They rode out clean, merging into traffic like ordinary commuters, disappearing the way the county wished Noah would. Klein held up a hand. Nobody touches anything, he warned Dalton. Witnesses only. Cameras. Call it in. Dalton met his gaze. That's what they'll do. Noah's throat tightened. You're going after him. Dalton didn't answer like it was a mission. He answered like it was a fact of gravity. He tried to lock my kid in a drain. Klein touched Noah's shoulder again. You're staying with me, he said. You're not going near that site. Noah wanted to argue, wanted to be useful, wanted to prove he wasn't just a kid being carried through rooms by adults. But then he remembered the click of the gun safety, the warning shot, the way Marsh's eyes looked at him like a loose end. He nodded once. Within an hour, the story broke open in layers. A local station ran footage from the courthouse steps, Judge Herrera's ruling, the banner that read 900, the calm line of bikes, and Noah walking between Klein and Dalton with a paper cup of water in his hands like he was trying to learn what safety felt like. Then came the next wave, a state press release confirming an investigation into county conduct, then another, an environmental unit dispatched to the development site, then a third, quieter, uglier piece. Harridan Civil's project was being halted pending inspection. Noah didn't understand the machinery of it, only that the county's grip started slipping the moment cameras and paperwork met the same truth. Late that afternoon, Klein's phone rang and he answered on speaker with Noah sitting beside him in the trailer office. Cody asleep on a couch in the warehouse with Elena's hand resting on his shoulder like she couldn't risk letting go. A woman's voice spoke fast, official. Mr. Klein, state investigators are on scene. We have probable cause for evidence tampering and witness intimidation. Klein's eyes flicked to Noah. And Marsh? A pause, a breath. Marsh attempted to leave the site, the voice said. He was stopped at a roadblock. He's in custody. Noah's lungs emptied all at once, like his body finally realized it could. Elena covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. Dalton didn't react outwardly. He just closed his eyes for half a second, brief, private, and when he opened them, the anger in his face was still there, but it had somewhere to go now. Cody sat up, half asleep, blinking. Is it over? He mumbled. Dalton crossed the room and sat on the edge of the couch. It's not over, he said gently. But you're safe. Cody's eyes found Noah. You're safe too? Noah hesitated because he didn't know if safe was something you could say out loud without the universe punishing you for it. Klein answered for him. He will be. That evening, as the warehouse yard filled with quiet movement, riders coming and going, lawyers and investigators passing through, phones ringing, something else happened that Noah didn't expect. People started treating his future like it mattered, not in speeches, in paperwork. Klein sat with Noah and went through forms like they were weapons. Emergency ID process, social services liaison who didn't report to the sheriff, medical records, a school outreach contact, a caseworker from the state who spoke to Noah like he was a person, not a file. Dalton didn't hover. He didn't buy Noah a car or toss him a stack of cash like a movie. He made calls. He arranged a place Noah could sleep where doors locked for him, not against him. He set up a meeting with a job training program connected to a shop one of the club's older members owned. Mechanical, hands-on, the kind of work where nobody cared about your last name as long as you showed up and learned. When Noah tried to refuse, Dalton looked at him like he was missing the point. You did something for my kid, Dalton said. Now let us do something for you. Noah's voice came out rough. I didn't do it for a reward. Dalton nodded once. I know. The next morning, the town felt different, like the air had shifted after a storm. The development site was taped off. News vans sat on the curb. County vehicles moved slower, more careful. Pruitt didn't appear on camera anymore, only a county spokesperson reading stiff lines about cooperation and internal review. Rumors moved through diners and gas stations like smoke, resignations, suspensions, investigators going through records. Noah didn't care about rumors. He cared about the small, unbelievable things that kept happening anyway. A shower that was his. A clean shirt that didn't come from a donation pile. A hot meal he didn't have to eat fast like it might be taken away. A bed that didn't require him to be invisible. On the third day, Klein placed a plastic card on the trailer desk and slid it across to Noah. Temporary state ID, his name printed cleanly. Not John Doe, not Runaway. His name. Noah stared at it for a long time before touching it, like it might dissolve if he claimed it. "It's real," Klein said. Noah's fingers closed around the card. It was light, stupidly light, and it made his throat tighten anyway. Later that week, Noah stood outside a small garage on the edge of town with a hand-painted sign that read, "Training Program. Ask inside." He wore work boots that weren't soaked through. He held his ID in his pocket like a talisman. Inside, tools hung on clean walls. The smell of oil and rubber hit him like a new language. A man with gray hair and grease on his hands looked up from an engine bay and nodded toward Noah. "You Noah?" the man asked. Noah swallowed. "Yeah." The man jerked his chin toward a bench. "Start by sorting sockets, learn the sizes, then we'll see if you can listen." Noah nodded once, moved toward the bench, and started sorting metal into order with hands that still remembered chains and rain and the weight of pulling a kid up from rising water. Outside, across the street, bikes lined the curb, not 900 this time, just enough. Engines idled low, steady, not threatening, not showing off, just present. Noah didn't look at them at first. Then he did. Dalton sat on his bike among the others, helmet in hand, watching the garage door like he was watching a horizon. He didn't wave. He didn't need to. He just met Noah's eyes once, a quiet acknowledgement that said, "Keep going." Noah turned back to the bench, picked up the next socket, and placed it in its slot as the engines outside kept their calm, steady rumble like a heartbeat that wouldn't leave.